Hello everyone, this is Sawyer and I'm casting some games from a tournament I hosted in late June of 2022. This was the Bool Cup, $100 prize pool. First place winner gets 55 bucks, second place 25, third 15, fourth place gets $5. So these are games played between a few of my friends. Up here, top left, Firebrand. In the blue, playing Protoss. Down here, bottom right, FancyFetus. Purple Zerg. Now, the MMR of these players, I believe Firebrand is a diamond. FancyFetus is a platinum player. So pretty close in MMR. I myself am a 4500 MMR Zerg, so that's low masters. My analysis, whoa, will be shaky, but I think we can get a clue. Anyways, FancyFetus opening with a spawning pool first. That is his signature move. He will do this in every game. There's no surprises when you're fighting FancyFetus. It is almost always going to be a pool first. Firebrand taking a high ground gateway. Looking to expand though. No probes in the assimilator yet. FancyFetus popping out his first 6 Zerglings, rallying them straight across the map to Firebrand's natural expansion. 2 probes on gas. Gateway has finished. Cyber going down. The first 6 Zerglings have popped, closing in on that 100 gas. Speed researched immediately. Drone getting involved. Probably just hasn't stopped chasing that probe from the beginning. I wonder if he'll be part of the attack. No, he is not. I would like it if he would harvest the mineral field there to make the follow-up Zerglings a little bit quicker. 6 Zerglings going into the main, wrapping around the pylon. Zealot pops out. We'll be able to defend. I think a probe pull is the correct response here. You don't want that pylon to fall, but there was no research anyway on warp gate or a unit being produced, so there's nothing really being delayed besides, well, there is a delay, but you get what I'm trying to say. Nothing was being created anyway, which is a mistake. So the Lings are just running around. That's a lot of micro being spent. 2 injects are saved up on the Queen. As I say that, he vomits them on the main hatchery. Should have gone down to the Nat to vomit the second round, as there was no Queen there. So the Lynx going back at it. This pylon going to fall for a second time by the looks of things. That probe not attacking. Probe's being pulled, realizes that these pylons are just too important to continue to lose. No mining happening for Firebrand. A little bit happening on the Nat. That was a brutal fight. All the Lings get cleaned up. At the cost of... I'm actually not sure how to see workers lost. Anyway. Definitely a few workers lost at least. 7 units total. I know for sure one of those was a Zealot. Is that a Roach Warren? Yes. FancyFetus opting for the Roach Warren. How's his macro? Oh, a massive Ling Flood. Let's go back to the production tab. What's Jake making? What's Firebrand making to answer this? He has a Stalker. A single Stalker. No units being produced. But his economy, clearly superior. He has 34 probes to 15 drones, to put that in perspective. But FancyFetus has 18 Zerglings, knocking the probe count down significantly. The force field at the ramp was actually a pretty sick move. unfortunately walling out about 20% of his economy. But if these Zerglings don't kill outright, Firebrand will be able to warp in some units and mitigate the losses. So he's sending the probes again, defending this pylon. I think we have warp-ins ready to go, but no money to do that with. And it looks like by fighting with the probes later rather than earlier, Jake is in a position where the Lings are literally denying all mining. Well, they're going back for that pylon. Yeah, it feels like Firebrand has checkmated himself by leaving that pylon so vulnerable and far away from his workers. If the production was closer to the workers and the shield battery, I just can't help but feel like he wouldn't have to, you know, run between bases to defend the production. It's a long walk for those probes, and when you pull all of them like that, well, how's the macro on FancyFetus' side? The queens have about 4 injects saved up each. This one's got 3. Lots of larvae, just now becoming Zerglings. So focusing a lot on the micro. The Ravagers are here now. And what do we have on the board for Jake? For Firebrand, we have 20 probes and 1 sentry. GG. And yeah, it looks like Firebrand just death by Artosis pylon like 3 times. First one goes to FancyFetus. I like this little hatchery just in case. You gotta hedge your bets. Alright, let's jump into game number 2. Alright, game 2. Firebrand spawning in the bottom left, the blue Protoss. And in the top right, purple Zerg, it's FancyFetus. Now we know FancyFetus is going to go pool first. Every time. That's just his thing. Spoiler alert. So, the question is, how will Firebrand react? Now, being a league above FancyFetus, I expect FancyFetus to double down on that first 6 Zergling exploit that he's attempting to do against a higher ranked Protoss. Maybe Jake Firebrand, has the better general game sense, but it didn't seem like the micro was all there in the first game. So maybe FancyFetus, like last game, will attempt to exploit his micro against Firebrand. But we see Firebrand, his game sense is pretty good. He is a diamond player after all, deciding to wall off the low ground and take a safer expansion. Hopefully he can get that up before this first 6 Zerglings jump in and kill all his Artosis pylons. FancyFetus taking his hatchery. Only 2 drones in the gas, so his speed will be delayed. I don't think that's on purpose. Firebrand also forgetting to put probes in the assimilator, but that is the least of his worries. He needs to defend this first Zergling volley. It's being produced right now. So, Firebrand's probe should have seen that. The first zealot in the wall, locking it down. That's great. Opting for a second gateway. This is something he tacked on a little bit later last time. We need to see warp gate going up as soon as possible, but he only just now remembered to put his probes in the geyser. He has 14 gas, and I think this probe is stuck. He should tell it to mine from the assimilator, and I believe it would unstick the probe. I'm not sure. So the Lings are attacking the wall while we were focused on that stuck probe. And Jake diligently keeping his zealot in the wall. He could play with Fancy a little better. He could send that zealot out to get some hits and then back up real quick. Yep, just like he's doing. The Adepts seal the deal. Now they need to shade away. That Nexus is secure. He's got gas going. FancyFetus opting for a Roach Warren at, I think this is a similar time to last game, maybe a little bit faster. But his macro His macro is really letting him down, or it did really let him down last game. In this game too, I think that the lack of a second queen is a pretty big deal, especially when you're putting on these kinds of Zergling pressures. Those adepts will clean up all the Zerglings, and they'll see that there's no workers at the Nat. Now they just need confirmation of tech in the main. The queens will have no problem defending, and yeah, he sees the Roach Warren, I believe. Let's switch to his vision. Camping behind the third base, that's smart. The Zerglings just barely found them. Wow. That's not devastating, it's just a mental, like, it's a mental oof for Firebrand. Mental win for the purple Zerg. This Overlord getting scouting on the Stalker should try to look for a Twilight or a third base, but the Zerglings can figure the third base thing out. Let's see if Firebrand can survive the, what is this, 9 Zerglings that are on the way. He's leaving the wall exposed. If FancyFetus just ran in right now, I think Firebrand would be in a very difficult spot, but the wall's closed. All right. The Probe getting a third base up. What is FancyFetus's response? 4 roaches on the way. Injecting with his queens, keeping his energy down. That's very important. A creep tumor, that is easily 2 leagues higher than his initial performance in game 1. Keeping the queen energy low, starting to spread creep, and anchor spine. Not a bad idea when you're fighting somebody at a higher level than you to play a little safer. Longer games mean you can extract more knowledge about your shortcomings. You don't want him to just run in with his first, 6 adepts, let's say, and just own you. So having some anchor at the front will keep things rolling. More chances to get back into the game if you're behind, which he definitely is in terms of economy. He has 23 drones versus 44 probes for Firebrand. So Firebrand doubling Fetus's economy. That's incredibly significant. That means that FancyFetus has to win this game very soon, or the economic advantage will start to snowball. However, the production for Firebrand, it's pretty small. He could have a couple more gateways at this point. I wouldn't mind it if he just started warping in, well, anything. Zealots, more stalkers. The sentries are okay, but there's an army outside of his front door, and there's 2 Ravagers in it. 3. Alright. The third mining base already starting to get more than halfway saturated for Firebrand, the blue Protoss. FancyFetus, purple Zerg, 30 drones to 54 probes, running in with his desperate all-in, attempting to Ravager Bile the center mass. Super battery coming down, healing all the units. Bile's on the super battery. It looks like he's desperately trying to kill the super battery, and he backs away. The Immortal chunking too many roaches. That's 5 kills. Not sure if they're all roaches or not. Saving the Ravagers is big. There's potential for a bit of counterplay. Sentries exposed. That is a lot of gas being lost, and the Immortal getting focused down is a real tragedy. 2 reinforcing Stalkers will clean up all the Ravagers, and so losing the Ravagers is a bigger tragedy than losing that Immortal because of the massive economic lead Firebrand has established for himself here. So now he just needs to focus on spending his massive bank. He's good at getting the money, but I mean, that's the easy part. You need to spend it properly. So he needs some more army production structures. Just throw down 5 or 6 more gateways, get a forge, get +1 attack, a couple more Immortals, wouldn't hurt, keep the production going, and he's doing a great job of that. When you see somebody going for a Roach all-in, you should just keep pressing I on this Robo facility. Or if you're Grid, I guess that's E. Not sure if Fetus got eyes on the 4th base there. He should understand that his economic situation is incredibly bleak. I mean, I think he understands that, but is he going to win with Hydra Tech? I don't know. Really, if he had some lurkers and was able to snipe the detection, maybe there's some opportunity for magic to happen. Siege the third, really take your third base seriously and saturate it. But, I mean, it looks like he's going for a straight-up engagement. This worries me because of the number of zealots in front, but the immortals aren't being microed away from the bios. Only now are they. The stalkers doing a massive amount of work. This immortal just chilling, reinforcing Lings. And this is really Fetus's last hurrah, the super battery coming out. And from this point, Firebrand could rally his production across the map, clean up Fetus's third, and there would just be no hope. But anything can happen down here. This is a Plat Diamond game, so nobody's mechanics are GM level perfect, so any of these players could make a serious blunder or a serious play using a high value unit like the Infestor or the Disruptor. If we saw those come out, I'd be shocked. This game is definitely going to end very soon in favor of Firebrand. How do I know? Because, well, I was in these games. So, sorry for the spoilers. Zealot run by, kind of a cool move. Seeing that there's only 6 drones on the third. And the Immortal Death Ball walking in. The Ling reinforcements, John knows he has to hold on, but he's not fighting near his anchor spines, and he just lost all the saturation on his third. The reinforcement stalkers, and 4 more zealots. Now, a warp prism would have been fantastic to just seal the deal, but he doesn't even need it. I mean, he's 85 probes to 31 drones. This game is over. FancyFetus, dead man walking. But drawing the game out, extracting some value, getting some practice, you can't blame the guy. Pulling the drones, trying to take a good fight. And GG. Firebrand takes the second game, so we are 1-1. Let's go into game number 3. Okay, game 3 in this best of 3. Firebrand spawning in the bottom left, our red Protoss. FancyFetus still purple, Zerg top right. Firebrand going for a low ground wall off. As in the previous game, it seemed to work out very well for him. He blocked the first 6 Zerglings. They never got a chance to give value, and he expanded more or less unopposed to his natural base. FancyFetus, the 16 pool man, we know he's going to do that like every time. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me, the hatch first, man. The gas first, then hatch, then pool man. Really a revolutionary build order. Firebrand very confused, looking for the spawning pool. It definitely is going to give John more gas earlier. I don't really know where the advantage could come with that, unless you wanted to do, say, a Baneling bust and you needed gas from the start. And yeah, I just don't know if that's worth taking a hatch between taking your pool and the gas. It feels like the hatch delays that Bane timing to a point where Firebrand could create more units, but I'm not exactly sure how that times out. So let's stop speculating on what this gas is going to be spent on and just try to look at the openers. As far as Firebrand is going, he's got the Cyber on the way. Nothing has changed for him. Faster gas. He will be getting Warp Gate on time for the first game in this best of 3. He will be getting Warp Gate on time for the first time in this best of 3. Okay, there we go. Fetus is going to proxy hatch? No, he's just lurking. Don't really know why. He understands that his macro in the previous games was subpar, but for having a gas first, the speed being this late, no bueno. He was floating about 120 gas after he purchased speed, so dropping the Bane Nest, that is his plan. So I have a vague memory of these games. These were played about a month ago, a month and a week or so, 5 weeks. The probe cutely stuck in the wall, trying to nuzzle through the Adept. Mineral walks like a true Grandmaster. And here come the first 6 Zerglings from FancyFetus. But the Adept already in the wall is going to have no problem deflecting that number of Zerglings in this narrow choke. With one more on the way, the second gateway being delayed so long, I feel like against a player who you know is going to run you over with Zerglings in the early game, or at least attempt to, you really want that second gateway as fast as possible. The Stargate, though, is probably what's on Jake's mind. It's probably what Firebrand is thinking about incorporating some air units for the first time. I like how both players are trying to shake it up this last game, or this third game. The Bane's getting morphed. Walking in, he has not enough to kill a pylon, but he definitely has enough to kill the Adept. No, I said definitely. Never ever. Okay. So the shield battery finishing just on time gives that Adept enough shields, and the second one in the back isn't even hurt. I would honestly abort this attack, or I would go way harder and try to kill the gateway and the cyber. They have similar amount of health, and if you can disable half of the gateway production and the cyber tech to deny any more Adepts, you're in a good spot. Though the super battery, of course, makes that a pipe dream, to say the least. The Adept overextending itself, dying outside. Jake is floating, Firebrand is floating 1,000 minerals and 500 gas. Absurd. No Void Ray on the way, though he could have, honestly, triple Stargate production right now. And, oh, the Banes bust down the first Adept. The other two not quite in position to block the flow of Lings. Fetus deciding it's a good idea to fight them under the battery, being very indecisive, killing the battery. That's decisive. 2 more Adepts being warped in. And yeah, they're gonna really reduce the Zergling numbers. I don't even think Fetus needed to fight that front wall. I mean, I know he wants to open the position so he can run in later, but there's no reinforcements. I take that back. There's some Lings on the way, but not in time for the breaking of the wall to be that significant. Just getting in, I would have run straight to the mineral line with these first, with these Zerglings, the first wave of Zerglings. Massive wave of Zerglings coming in. That's 31 Zerglings. Pardon my camera control. The Adepts not quite in position. They're not in the wall. The Zerglings get to do exactly what I was prophesizing, and they run straight into the main. Wow, how did I know? I think it's probably because I've seen these games before. These are vague memories, not original ideas. The probe DPS is actually insane. Firebrand's economy is 50% better than FancyFetus's, though again, he is not mining currently, and that's a huge deal. So the Oracle way over here, I think that needed to be used for defense. Now the production gets shut down on the Stargate. That is not good. I think what Firebrand needs to do is take his Adepts, take half of his probes, and try to kill these Lings before they inflict any more damage, depowering the gateways. Firebrand, literally no production right now. He's producing nothing. Resonating Glaives got denied, 40 seconds short. He absolutely needs to put these pylons down before John gets a chance to do any more damage. The pylon in the front wall, not going to be in time. Oh, there we go. Okay, so what Firebrand is missing right now is getting these Adepts to the front wall. That would have been very important to try and stifle the flow. He could also wall with up to 15 pylons if he needed to. He has a bank of 1,500 minerals and 700 gas, the production not even being restarted on that Stargate or the resonating glaives, both of which, if they finished, would secure him this defense. But it looks like FancyFetus gonna use that initial drone that he sent at the beginning of the game to make a proxy third base for no other reason than bad manner. We have an observer ping on this Oracle, and that's, yeah, I was not following his story very well. He could take out most of the economy of FancyFetus, but instead he's just going to decide to stay there, or he could come home to defend. I mean, we see, look at all these Zerglings and all these Banelings. Firebrand right now is in a terrible position if these Banelings manage to detonate properly. There we go, disabling one gateway, and they just walk in. Oh, that is devastating. That is absolutely devastating. FancyFetus only has 18 drones, but he's dropping the probe count of Firebrand very quickly. When probes are being used as military units, it doesn't really matter if you have more workers than your opponent, because they're not mining. Well, that's obvious, I suppose. The second Oracle following the same path. The first Oracle finally realizing it needs to do some work. But the Ling Flood into the main. The Oracle will get 5 kills. Should have focused the Queen a little earlier. Okay, it survives. And now the question is, can he repower any of his production on the low ground? Besides that, the production on the high ground, I missed the construction of those 3 gateways. He's just completely abandoned the low ground at this point. This is a zombie defense map. Oracle coming back home for defense. The first Oracle with its 200 energy is going to attack the hatchery, but it should fly home. It needs to defend his money, or it should fly into the main and try to, I don't want to say base trade because it's not going to kill any buildings, all the probes falling. But if that Oracle simply went into the main, there's a spore there, I suppose. Yeah, and that's a tough one. Firebrand just gets busted. Game number 3 goes in FancyFetus's favor. So FancyFetus won the best of 3. Let's go into the next series. All right. Bool Cup round 2 upper bracket. We have our 2 players, brand new players, first time playing in the cup. In the upper right corner of Glittering Ashes, we have our random player who happened to queue in as Zerg. It is VitalWinter. And in the bottom left, our red Protoss, Cserbs. Now, the MMR of these players, I believe Cserbs is between Platinum and Diamond, and I believe VitalWinter is between Gold and Platinum. So about a league in difference, maybe a little more than a league, favoring Cserbs, but MMR does not tell the whole story. VitalWinter going for a pool first. My friend, my friend Skeptic observing. I chatted in all chat. As if in response, Cserbs with the pings. Too funny. Yeah, so there's going to be some banter back and forth between me and Skeptic. I'm not going to focus too much on that. I'm just going to try to focus on these players' openers. Cserbs going for a double gateway and a gas. VitalWinter, the pool has finished, but there's no gas. So no speed. This is a gasless opener by the looks of it. But he's producing 3 drones, so that's very confusing. No hatch and no gas and no queen, so very indecisive. Now trying to get all of them at once. I expected to see 6 Zerglings coming out to put pressure on Cserbs opening. Just now the gas being taken. This drone is creating an Evo chamber. Very interesting. Still no queen yet. And I'm not sure about that. VitalWinter getting a scout on the main base of Cserbs. Oh, I love the little sounds that the drones make with their little saw arms from this. What is this, the Cerberus pack? No, this is a Stetman mecha drone, I believe. I hope he punches something again. I really like the sound of those laser drills. And we see that, oh, he just started taking gas. There's literally no gas for VitalWinter. Yikes, I believe that's a mistake and not intentional. The queen also severely delayed. Speed could be like very far along by now. Let's just hope that Cserbs doesn't attack too early, or VitalWinter will be caught horribly off guard. 2 adepts coming out, going down to the low ground to finish off that drone. Observer ping on the ramp. And Cserbs will successfully expand. VitalWinter, we see 4 lings on the way and a 3rd hatchery. The queen popped, but no injects, and speed has not been started yet, nor have any upgrades on the Evo, so this is a very confusing opener. From what I can tell, it is a non-opener. It is an anti-opener. He's regressing. The Stargate from Cserbs being chrono boosted, a Phoenix right now would be amazing. Control the map against an opponent who has forgot their tech. Not that Cserbs could know. Unless he sent a scout in. He doesn't know about Vital's opener. Though the Phoenix, if it flies across, will figure it out real quick. Spine in the natural, expecting maybe something like a Zealot or Adept push. It doesn't want to be caught off guard by that. And 1 in the main. Being very safe, perhaps realizing his economy situation is primed, but not in full swing. He's ready to macro hard, but he just needs to do it. These larvae need to be spent. These lings coming out, it looks like they're going straight across. Cserbs could use a small drone or a small probe transfer, and warp gate is not being researched, though double chrono stargates. The Phoenix are being sent across the map. VitalWinter at the same time sending the lings around the long side. Protoss units rallied across the map will not find these lings, and as Cserbs is hitting the 3rd base of VitalWinter, VitalWinter's what is this? 20 Zerglings are just marching straight by the adepts. Oh my goodness. Pardon my camera control. This is crazy. Cserbs just now realizing what is happening. The lings are destroying his natural base, and some got into the main. Very intelligent splits out of VitalWinter, just putting his eggs in multiple baskets and getting huge value for it. I would love it if these lings would have grabbed those adepts before they could come to the defense of the probes in the main. The game might just be over. Low ground Zerglings disabling pylons now outside, though I don't think they're going to find much more value. I would say semi-successful defense by Cserbs. The probes were pulled off the mineral line. They had to fight for a while. And just generally, these Nexi have not been producing enough probes. It is 23 probes to 36 drones for VitalWinter. And like I mentioned earlier, the primed position for his economy to take off, he's realizing it now. He's spending the energy on his queens for larva. And here come the 6 Phoenix. Now these are going to be very good for map control, which is what you want against a macro-focused Zerg. You want to hold the map, deny creep, kill queens, kill overlords, get scouting information. All of this is great. And he's going to pick off a couple OVs, a few drones, a queen or 2. And this is just a very, very good spot for Cserbs. The drone count for VitalWinter is very, very high. Phoenix are capable of harassing, but rarely doing lethal damage. So these adepts, I would love to see them get some more drone kills underneath the sport, but the spine crawler really zoning out. Cserbs too afraid to push in and forgetting to macro at home. Almost 200 energy on the natural base Nexi, 100 on the main, no units in production, no research, no Stargate units. The adepts got surrounded, and the Phoenix now have to retreat home as VitalWinter sends, my god, almost 30 lings across the map. And the response from Cserbs is only just now happening. Again, pardon my camera control, but we see 3 photon cannons here that are only 12 seconds into the production of a 29-second structure. The lings are going to surround them and kill them all. They should have been built in the main mineral line. The natural was forfeit as soon as the production was never, as soon as the units were never produced. The probes being forced to attack. This is a repeat of FancyFetus versus Firebrand, where the lings just get on top of the probes, and the probes have to function as military units. Now, it's looking like VitalWinter has done critical damage. He's killed 33 probes. And Cserbs has 1 probe remaining. 1 probe. He is a stuck probe. The energy on the Phoenix too low. Cserbs was defeated. No GG. Well played game out of the underdog, VitalWinter. The opening was very, very shaky. Almost 2 minutes delayed on a lot of critical tech and production. And the drone cycles were off a lot, but let's not be too critical, because that play with the lings moving around to the side totally dodged the vision of the Phoenix. And yeah, Cserbs was caught completely off guard as the lings ran through his base and just demolished him. And then the follow-up was just so huge. The spores came in very handy from VitalWinter. Another intelligent play, even at such low a league. That's very cool to see. So let's hop into game number 2. Okay, game number 2 between our green Zerg spawning in the lower left of, what map is this? Blackburn? I believe this is Blackburn. And in the bottom right, wait, did I say his name? Shoot. Green Zerg, VitalWinter, Blackburn. Okay, all right. Can you tell I've done this before? Red Protoss spawning in the lower right. It is Cserbs. Last game, VitalWinter, I would say underdog. Got Z again. Wow, says the observer skeptic. So VitalWinter again decided to random. I don't know what his main is. I believe it's Zerg. Not sure. Oh, listen to the sound of those laser saws. I want more action. Come on, buddy. Fight, fight, fight. Oh, man. The music just started up as those saws activated. Well, I hope we get to hear it again. Yeah, it looks like Casey's probe, the red probe of Cserbs, is denying the low ground expansion of VitalWinter, which apparently he didn't even want to take yet. The pool first and the gas lead me to believe that the drone went down there simply to scout what the probe was up to. Now, this is going to be delayed. It's going to be a little painful, so we're going to look away. We're going to check out Cserbs opening. Wait, they're in combat. I just missed the saws again. I totally forgot about the saw laser noise. Okay. Whatever. The opener of the opener of Cserbs, shaky as both players micro instead of macro. He forgot the cyber and the expansion, and VitalWinter forgot his expansion, and he forgot his overlord, and he doesn't have 3 drones in the gas, so speed's going to be super delayed. And now, like I said, these players are not Grandmaster, obviously, but these are huge, huge, easily correctable mistakes, right? Make your Nexus on time. If you're using your probe to stall, whoa, hang on, those 2 lings just killed 2 probes, just free. That's massive, actually. If only the macro cycle, if only the queen was out, you know, that would be a much bigger advantage. Either way, like I was saying, if you're focusing too much on getting small gains, think about how much you could actually be improving your own pieces back at home, right? This isn't a turn-based game. You can't micro against your opponent like with them and then, you know, just completely forget about macro. You have to kind of do these things simultaneously, or you have to switch back and forth between them so fast. Neither of these players quite at the level where they can probe and drone micro and also macro. So it really hurt both of them, that early interaction. I don't think it was better or worse for either of them. VitalWinter is now got a queen, still only 2 drones in gas and no speed, just realizes it. And Adept's on the way. Cserbs not supply cap because of the finishing of the Nexus, though I believe the Adepts were severely delayed, or at least the Cyber was delayed, forcing the Adepts to also be delayed. 4 Lings coming in, going to try to attack the Adepts. VitalWinter does not have enough game knowledge to realize that it is a failed effort. You really want 10 Zerglings to clear 2 Adepts, more like 12. Adepts are scary units. You need to kind of out DPS them before they can DPS you as the Zerg. So get a full surround with your Zerglings, stop them from moving, and just try to kill the ball of Adepts. But it's only 4 Lings, and they did scout which units, Cserbs opted to go for out of the gates. Cserbs, a fan of incorporating Adepts into Stargate-based compositions. As of recently, he realized it helped out his early game a lot. We did some talking back and forth before the tournament. I said, hey, it's going to be so easy to exploit you if you just go for Stargate units right out the gate. You got to incorporate some gateways and Adepts. Now, I don't think he heard the part where I mentioned that Warp Gate is super important because this is the second game, very late Warp Gate as well. But he does have double Stargate. That's his signature. Much like FancyFetus prefers going pool first nearly every game, Cserbs known to go for double Stargate nearly every game. VitalWinter, with the Spore Crawler sensing that Sky Toss is on the way. Only a single Spore in the main, would like to see one in the natural, and I would love to see these Queens start injecting so we can get his macro on point. The Protoss should not be in the lead in terms of probes right now. There should be a lot more drones on the field. The third base also much later than the previous third base for VitalWinter. Both these players kind of delaying each other with this harassment. They both feel the need to harass and react to the harassment. But honestly, I think focusing more on macro would help both these guys a lot. The Lings and Roaches coming in. The shield battery is going to make this impossible to break. He should just target the battery down and then focus on the Adepts. But the Adepts are stutter microing, kind of tunnel vision, running away from the battery. They need to stand next to that battery to mitigate losses. One Adept falls, the shield battery becomes overcharged and gains increased range. Another Adept falls. So I would say the Roaches and Lings got the value. So what they did was they forced a shield battery to overcharge, they scouted the Void Ray, and they traded out against 2 Adepts. Probably didn't need to lose the Ovi and the Roach there as well, but not a horrible decision to do that very small attack. It keeps Cserbs honest. It keeps him showing his hand. And so the injects for the Queens are coming down. The Queens can definitely deflect these 2 Void Rays. The trick is just getting them in position to do so. This Spore Crawler, very useful tank. I would have canceled that, but it got a few hits on. And actually, you know what? I think it was better to not cancel that because VitalWinter would transfuse it with those 2 Queens. A very good play. Very good play. 4 Queens now, zoning the Void Rays. This Void Ray with 10 HP. Must be very frustrating for VitalWinter. 2 more Void Rays just came in. Let's see what the response is as far as Queens for VitalWinter. Still no Queens in production. 5 on the field. The 3 that are zoning these Void Rays are doing a great job. However, there's no creep spread between any of the bases, and so they can't go help the third base, and God forbid these the Void Rays split up and go into the main and the Nat. It would be very difficult for the Queens to chase those down. The Hydra's just popping. We haven't been keeping a close eye on the tech, but that's what you want as a Zerg. If he can just ball up and defend on 2 bases, save the drones, fill the gases, start getting upgrades, the Queens must transfuse. The Hydra is falling. Skeptic with the mid-game analysis that Red is favored, and I would be inclined to agree if Red's macro was on point, but it's not. It is, it's actually equal to Greens. Now, as a Zerg, you want to be ahead of a Protoss. Yes, in terms of bases, in terms of drones, generally you want to be ahead or you're having a tough time. But the Void Rays seem like they're getting a lot of Hydras and Queens forced. Now, you have to be sure that you can kill the Hydras and Queens once you force them. The weak Void Ray, one of them going down, overcharging against the Queen, not necessary. It does literally no more damage. It just slows you down. So retreating, realizing the Hydra count is too high, saving, I was gonna say saving 3 very low HP Void Rays, but losing just 1. That's better than losing all of them though. It could have gone way worse. VitalWinter and Cserbs' third bases are similarly timed, though VitalWinter obviously slightly behind since it got canceled by these voids. But what is the macro like? We see carriers. I think that's a very strong transition. Very glad to see carriers. Hydra's not the unit that you want against a carrier. You really want to grab some corruptors. As far as workers killed, it's been a very idle game. I mean, VitalWinter's killed 7 workers, but that was all pre-5 minutes, I believe. And at this point in time, Cserbs has the worker lead, being, well, 9 workers above where VitalWinter is, and that's very strong. That's a very strong position to be in as a Protoss. I would highly recommend just turtling for 1 or 2 minutes, building up your carrier ball, getting 5, 6, 7 carriers, and then just moving right across. The chrono is exactly in line with what I'm suggesting, and I believe air weapons level 1 is finished here for... No, it's not finished. Is there double upgrades going down, or... I'm missing... Oh, geez, there it is right there. Yeah, so in the production we can see the upgrades. Air weapons level 1 is very close to finishing. That gives every interceptor +1 attack damage. And there are 7 interceptors, 8 interceptors. So they fire twice as well. 2 attacks with +1 damage upgrade each attack means that the carriers gain, if you think about all the interceptors firing their volley at the same time, the carriers gain 16 damage effectively with that 1 air weapons upgrade. And that's a roundabout way of saying that, oh, he needs to be careful, he can't lose any of these carriers, or that Hydra ball, if it spirals out of control, could just walk and kill. This carrier being caught out in case he realizes it. The Adept's actually buying a little bit of time for these carriers to escape. An engagement here would be, well, it seems to be working, though the carriers are not being microed backwards. I think the Void Ray DPS is chipping in just enough to where the carrier, yeah, the Sky Toss ball was successful. 2 more carriers fly in to reinforce. Would have loved the engagement to be delayed by Cserbs for these 3 carriers to appear, and then it would just be a straight walk, but it looks like VitalWinter has succumbed to a critical lack of macro. He has a ton of queens. The creep spread is there-ish, but the Hydra upgrades are not on time. I don't see any evolution chambers. There's no way for him to hold unless the transfusions on these queens are rock solid, and he needs them all here because queens actually do very good anti-air damage, or they can at least hold their own. And so only 2 transfusions, many high energy queens are falling. They didn't quite fight under spores, and the queens in the main and the natural are not contributing to the fight. There's probably, how many queens out here that could be helping? There's 9 queens right now. That would honestly be game changing if they were all together transfusing these corruptors, but it looks like VitalWinter just lacked the control group. He's meanwhile busying himself with a Ling run by, and I think just underestimating his position as far as the carriers were concerned, not grouping up. All these Hydras that spawn are going to be picked off one by one, and this is shaping up to be game. 6 damage, 2 attacks, 8 interceptors. Each carrier. Wow. It is a GG, and very confused tech there, I think, from VitalWinter. He realized he needed corruptors to handle the carrier, but he had kind of already committed to Hydra. And so I would have loved to see something more like a Spire rather than a Hydra Den, and then just make Ling Bane and try to harass the potential third base and natural location while you build your Corruptor Queen ball, creep the map, make a little bit of a Spore forest at the front wall, which he did. And I think he would have been in a much better position, but still pretty good performance from our underdog VitalWinter, and rock solid from Cserbs as well. Never really behind in that game, only losing a few probes at the very beginning, but remembering to macro for the first few minutes really helped him. Okay, so let's jump into game number 3. All right, in the top left corner of Pride of Altaris, it's the underdog, VitalWinter. In the bottom right, sending his 2 probes across the map, up to some fishy business, it is Cserbs, the red alien man with laser arms. Definitely are not lightsabers. Oh, okay, so this is really silly. We're gonna see a lot of lightsaber men, actually. This is going to be a proxy 4-gate. I know, because this game made me laugh my ass off. It was really fun to watch, and it's very short, so I hope that doesn't spoil things, but it starts with a proxy pylon. The first pylon being proxied indicates clearly it is going to be a 4-gate. VitalWinter, the key is just seeing like what the response will be. You know, how fast can he scout what Cserbs is up to? If the answer is he doesn't scout it until it's at his front door, well then he's kind of already lost. It's a really difficult thing to hold, especially when you don't see it coming. So I would love to see overlords being fanned out, you know, send one straight down, send one straight across, send, you know, a drone if you have to. I don't know. If you suspect that someone's going to do this in a tournament, then you would have those thoughts, but I think VitalWinter is going to get completely blindsided by this. He has a natural base taken immediately after his spawning pool, and that's just kind of where we're at. The 4 gateways are dropping. The pylon here to offer more supply, preventing a supply cap is critical. Chrono's going down on 2 of the gateways. This is nearly a flawless 4-gate execution, and the response from VitalWinter is, well, 1 pair of Zerglings right now, no speed, an Evo chamber, and no, the queen can't spawn because of the supply cap, so no queen. 2 zealots ready outside of the 3rd base location. First 2 lings marching across, trying to get some information, but by the time they get there, they're going to be horribly surprised to see that there's nothing. And when they look back, there will be 5, 6, 7 zealots chopping the Nat hatchery, or better yet, running into the main and killing this very vulnerable spawning pool position. This is a very bad place to put your pool against someone who's doing a strategy like this. Not that VitalWinter could have known, but it's generally better to keep it in the back of your mineral line, somewhere you can surround it and defend it. The spine crawler being dropped in front of the zealot ball, going down immediately, minus 100 minerals. The drones grouping up, realizing they need to do something to stop this pool from falling. Lings on the way, queen popping the instant that this engagement happens. The drones trading against 5 zealots, not very effectively. Where are the Zerglings? Where are the Zerglings? This fight needed to be slightly delayed until those lings popped, I think, in order to DPS those zealots and keep some drones alive. But VitalWinter down to 3 drones. This base across the map, I mean, that's 300 minerals that's not being turned into spine crawlers right now. He should have 3 spine crawlers, 4 spine crawlers in the back of his mineral line so he can defend them while they build, but this is just devastating. 18 workers have been killed by these 6 zealots, and 2 more zealots are at the natural, denying all hope for VitalWinter of ever mining from his main or natural base again. He sends 2 drones out, but they get spotted by this hero zealot who is now very wise to the prospect of a hidden base, and so it will run and probably find that base soon. The zealot count swelling to 10, 12, 13 zealots on the field. Cserbs feels no need to spend any more money. He's already won the game, making a cyber core just in case, which yeah, go for it. Grab a gas too. Grab a base while you're at it. Put a base here. Or better yet, put it by your production. Well, I guess he built in the production. Right here would be fine. Either way, The Zealot is approaching the hidden base, and with 3 mining drones against 17 probes, there really is no hope left. VitalWinter, GG's. Very exciting game, showing Cserbs' ability to play out a tournament and throw in some builds in the later stages that really contradict the style he was playing at the beginning of the tournament, and VitalWinter just did not expect the 4-gate. So that is the series between Cserbs and VitalWinter. Let's go meet our next opponents in the next series. All right, so in round 2, we have the returning champion, FancyFetus, Purple Zerg, in the top left of Pride of Altaris. Yeah, so in the bottom right, we have our new contestant playing for the first time in this tournament, Hamburger, also known as BMO. So we may refer to this man as BMO. Red Protoss. So FancyFetus last series beat an opponent that was about 1,000 MMR higher than himself, which is pretty. It might not be that big. It might be between 500 and 1,000, but that's a pretty big deal. That shows that maybe his rank in 1v1 is not accurate, or one of their ranks is not accurate, because, I mean, honestly, that series against Firebrand, the Diamond Protoss, FancyFetus, by the way, is ranked as Platinum, was kind of a roll. It seemed like Firebrand just didn't know how to stop early floods of Zerglings, and once Banelings were incorporated, even though Firebrand had doubled FancyFetus's economy, he was really struggling to hold on. But either way, maybe FancyFetus is a one-trick pony with the early Zergling attacks. It could just very well be that's where his skill set lies, and that's where Firebrand's biggest weakness lies. So in this game, the reason I mentioned that skill disparity is because Hamburger is a silver player. So FancyFetus, the plat, just beating a diamond, now going up against a silver. And just let that give you some context for the strategies that we're going to see coming out of this game. The openers, as far as I can tell from FancyFetus, are going to be pool first, 6 lings attacking Hamburger's main wall. Now, Hamburger knows about Zergling timings. I've played with Hamburger, we've practiced, and I'll often send these first 6 lings, at him to test his mettle. And the wall is empty! There are no units being produced. I mean, there's one, but it's going to get canceled because of the pylon dropping. This is terrible. This is terrible. I can barely watch this, ladies and gentlemen. Hamburger's front wall is falling. All the Artosis pylons. FancyFetus realizing it's time to make more Zerglings. Smelling blood in the water after that first pylon went down. There needs to be a probe pull. This production is BMO's lifeline. It is Hamburger's lifeline. Pylon in the main. Just there to offer some supply. Maybe he's going to finish walling off. Pulls the probes back, thinking that the Zerglings were retreating or something. The feint by FancyFetus, just dodging, baiting. Now I believe there are more Zerglings than probes. Just about. There's 19 Zerglings and 21 probes. Production has not been restarted. The lower wall, I think this is game on paper. We'll see if FancyFetus, yep, he's going for the kill. That's what you want to see. A move right there. Till the last man falls. I take that back. Here's the last man. So this proxy, Stargate? I think it would have been. Definitely a pipe dream. Gotta make a zealot to put on your wall. There's not much more analysis I want to give to this game. That was a straight up stomp by FancyFetus' first 6 Zerglings. But in the previous series against Firebrand, this is how FancyFetus got his first victory, and in subsequent games, Firebrand responded better with a fuller wall. Let's see if Hamburger will wisen up in the second game. All right, game 2 between FancyFetus, the purple Protoss, and Hamburger, the red Protoss. This is a break of character. FancyFetus going for Protoss. In the previous games, you'll recall he was a Zerg, believing that he can beat Hamburger with his off race, or at least giving his off race the old college try. Already, I like the opener better for FancyFetus, taking a high ground gateway. BMO going for the double low ground gateway. What do we have in the production tab? Gas for FancyFetus, double gas. Yeah, that's normal. I don't mind it. FancyFetus sending the probe around to proxy. Interesting. I don't think he was aware of Hamburger's proxy in the previous game. I hope this pans out. Saturating the gases. Hamburger very late to the realization that he too needs gas. This is a PvP. You're going to want those high value gas units like Stalkers in the early game. Later, Immortals or Void Rays, depending on which way it goes. Robo or Stargate. At this level, the meta is undefined. Cybercore coming down for Fetus. And BMO actually in pretty short order of each other. Maybe a 20-second lead on FancyFetus' Cyber. Warp gate research needs to happen. I wouldn't mind seeing... So when I said needs to happen, I meant it's completely optional. He is going for the Stargate and opting for a Stalker. Not much to be said about the game in its current state. I would like to see these 2 gateways producing nothing but Stalkers from Hamburger. Stalkers are a good PvP early game unit to establish some security for yourself. They're useful later against oracles. They provide a lot of safety. Now, the first unit's going to be a Void Ray, and the second Stargate was proxied as well. But I don't know if 2 Stargates off 1 base is feasible. I think he should really make a Nexus. I think he needs more than 2 geysers for 2 Stargates, but I'm not 100% sure. PvP, not really my strong suit, though it doesn't need to be for me to understand that this battery from Hamburger is god tier. This structure in this game right now is stopping FancyFetus' Stalker from just walking in the main base, getting full scouting information, and it's allowing Hamburger to create his Stalkers to answer. So Hamburger also with the Stargate, but that first Void Ray of FancyFetus is out. Losing that Stalker was not necessary. The economy of Hamburger is now in a fantastic spot. He has a Nexus up over Fetus, and yeah, I apologize if I sound flustered. I'm just trying to keep up with this game. I don't know why it's going so fast. I think it's just so weird seeing these time out like this. I feel like FancyFetus needs to do massive work with these Void Rays, and he'll opt for a lot of probe kills. Pulling all the boys away. Hamburger with his own Void Ray needs to keep that near the battery. This is PvP, ladies and gentlemen. The overcharge going down, but the battery FancyFetus could not really afford to lose that Void Ray. We'll see if that's a true sentence in the next 5 or so minutes. But he's got his own battery he's retreating to. Hamburger's content to let the Void Rays go back to wherever they came from, and he's transferring probes back into the main base. Meanwhile, FancyFetus, the macro, slipping. No saturation on that natural base. Let's check out the units. Yeah, BMO, Hamburger, is up 9 probes in a PvP where he has, I would say, similar, equal production, army production, good footing. He really should pump units like Stalkers and Void Rays. These warp gates should be used on cooldown to make Stalkers. Just knowing that there's a proxy Stargate, at least one nearby, I feel like more Stalkers when you only have one Stargate of your own couldn't hurt. Chronos just in time to not make any... Okay, he's making a Phoenix now because he ran low on gas. And in come 4 Void Rays from FancyFetus. Going back to the main base. This is big. Hamburger only has 2 Void Rays of his own. Going for the Nexus kill. Here's the Phoenix, the 2 Stalkers and the 2 Void Rays coming in. They kill a Void Ray. BMO's army actually bigger than FancyFetus's. Turning and fighting is not the move. The Stalkers are going to be able to... And, oh, the micro, the Phoenix micro, that last Void Ray down, and tanked enough for these 2 Void Rays to kill another Void Ray. FancyFetus's production is higher. The Void Ray production's higher than Hamburger's. Through this whole ordeal, Hamburger has not transferred his probes back to the main or started another Void Ray. So apparently, even if you trade as poorly as FancyFetus just did, stealing Hamburger's APM is more valuable than money can buy, I suppose. So he really needs to re-expand. I don't even really care if he goes back to his main or if he takes a third. He's taking a third, it looks like. How's the saturation going? FancyFetus has caught up in workers. He's just now getting Warp Gate. Going for a gateway follow-up. I guess you could call this a transition considering his investment. I mean, it's only 2 Stargate. He can definitely support 3 gate. Oh, a fleet beacon. Interesting. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, like I mentioned in the first game, these players, Hamburger being a silver or a gold, and FancyFetus being a platinum player, the build orders are not refined. That's just, I mean, that's just obvious. So, I don't want to be rude and call them non-build orders, but truly they are non-build orders, and we get to see the creativity of the players' responses as broken away from, I guess you could say, a Grandmaster game where the build orders are pretty tight and the responses are, I don't want to say figured out, but I think this early in a PvP, a micro battle like that going in favor of Hamburger in that way would have been game over in a professional, top level PvP. I don't want to talk over the game here. We have 3 Zealots doing a run by straight across the map into FancyFetus's natural base, forcing Adepts to be warped in, forcing the probes away from the natural, and 4 Void Rays are out for FancyFetus, but 4 are out for BMO. As I was mentioning earlier, the economy for BMO, for Hamburger, was astoundingly better than FancyFetus's. Though these idle probes, these 7 idle probes are not helping. 8 idle probes. If this was a pro game, as I was mentioning, I think the Hamburger economy lead would have basically forced a GG. Just ramp up production and out deathball your opponent. But in these lower level games with these non-build orders, there's a lot more room for players to mess up in a big way. And I think what we're seeing is Hamburger slowly starting to throw the game. I mean, he hasn't thrown yet. He made very good plays, very good decisions about the micro, early on. But now his macro is slipping. Now it's BMO now it's Hamburger who's the one that really needs to get grips with his economy. In the beginning, I was very, very afraid that FancyFetus' economy was just going to be as it was in the games versus Firebrand, where he has half of the mining bases, half the worker count. But in this game, he caught up. He actually, for the first time, is equal to Hamburger in probes. Briefly ahead. So more zealots going in for a run by. This is actually way more than these 3 adepts can deal with. Need to see some warp-ins. But the Void Ray Ball deciding to ignore the zealots, going in, overcharging first, microing down BMO's Void Rays, and now it's 6 Void Rays against 0. This is huge. This is game-ending stuff. Oh, all the probes. FancyFetus is natural. Just got wiped out by the zealot run by. No response there. No retreat. Hilarious. And Hamburger has all the money in the world. 3,000 minerals. 900 gas. And yet, no production structures. And just like how FancyFetus beat Firebrand in game 1, he's just simply outproducing his opponent on equal or less economy. These zealots are all just so indispensable. 7 kills, 5 kills, 6 kills, 8 kills. These have trashed the entire economy of FancyFetus. These 6 or 7 zealots did as much work as these Void Rays. However, Void Rays have staying power, zealots do not. The zealots aren't going to come back home and defend against these Void Rays. I mean, these Void Rays get free reign, and I think unless BMO does something drastic to fix his production, it's going to be over. He has all the money in the world. He's already got the idea to make a hidden base, but I think that is too little too late. I'm talking 10 gateways, stalker production. As soon as the main base and the natural fell, I think you just needed to proxy like 10 to 15 gates. But he's opting for a photon cannon based response. With Tempest out, certainly a pipe dream. FancyFetus not fixing his economy, just kind of hanging out on 16 probes. He found the proxy pylon that was warping in those zealots. Really a good move from Hamburger. I mean, I was talking about the skill disparity between these two players being so vast. And it is. But to see such a creative move like that out of Hamburger, our silver gold players, fantastic. He really equalized the economy situation. Unfortunately, the production slipped through his fingers, and that's why he's going to lose this game. But very noble effort. Very awesome to see. Like 7 zealots in the main base with like 6 or 7 kills each. That was hilarious. Dropping Fetus from 40 probes down to 16 is amazing. Though the Void Rays from FancyFetus' 2 Stargate production are going to just dominate from above. Nothing can shoot them. There are no gateways, no stalkers being made. The gateways only now being created. Too little, too late, my friend. With 1 Nexus left, Fetus has got to be kind of impatient. He's like, ugh. Just end the game already, you know? There's no way you're coming back. You'd have to give Hamburger probably 3 or 4 minutes untouched before he had any kind of an army, let alone one that can beat constant production out of 2 Stargate, Tempest, Void Ray. Checking around, saying, get out of my game, Hamburger. Looking for the ball of Void Rays. The only thing that Hamburger could have that would justify staying in this game. The Tempest is just a checkmate kind of unit, right? You don't have anything that can even kill it. GG comes out. Though before the game ended, FancyFetus did get a counter GG, so automatically a double win, and Hamburger stealing FancyFetus's third or fourth base location at the very end of the game is also kind of like a double win. Maybe it's a double loss. I think, yeah, actually that just counts as a double loss. Well, that concludes the series between FancyFetus and Hamburger. FancyFetus advancing, Hamburger falling to the losers round, where he will have to face off against, let me check here. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'll tell you all in the third series. See you there. All right. My HUD is pink, says VitalWinter. Our random player, he is in the top right corner of 2K Atmospheres. Green Terran is the flavor of the day. In the lower left, his opponent, the blue Protoss, Firebrand. Now, ooh, that's pretty slick. I should do this when I introduce the players. Okay, let's do the intros again, just because that looks so fun. After we witness this amazing 1v1, that probe needs to kill the SCV. There's no universe in which that SCV is allowed to live. He needs 2 hits. He's going into the mineral line. All of his focus is on that SCV. And Firebrand decides to back out. Oh. That probe is a killer, man. That is a military unit. Utilizing the particle beam to the fullest extent. You know what? I'm not gonna reintroduce them. Let me introduce some other part of the match. All right. In the bottom left, natural expansion of Firebrand. He's taking his Nexus. Without the HUD to distract us, we can also see that in the natural of VitalWinter goes down a command center. Alright. I think that this cyber is slightly delayed. Yep, doesn't have a probe down there. Tick tock, Mr. Firebrand. 2 depots at the wall is I don't know, is that going to be a command center? Okay, so he's not going to full wall. Not really, I'm not holding my breath, I'm just waiting for something more substantial to happen. Yeah, so the difference between Firebrand's skill level and VitalWinter's skill level is probably 2 leagues at least. But again, as I mentioned in previous games, Firebrand's main race at the diamond level was Zerg, and now he switched to Protoss, so he's likely at least a league, maybe slightly more or less below his main race, Zerg. So Protoss is his main race now, and he's probably competing still 1 league to 1.5 leagues higher than VitalWinter. Now, I have no idea what VitalWinter's skill is with Terran. We've only seen him random Zerg so far in this tournament, which is quite crazy. Very lucky or unlucky, depending on how he looks at it. This interaction never goes well for the Marine. His body parts are flying away. This is my dream as like a first-time caster, to get to show you floating body parts in 2K Atmospheres. Love to see it. So the command centers becoming orbitals it's great, but the first command center should become an orbital as well. You really want mules, you want Marines against these adepts. Do you? I don't know. Do you just want Hellions? I literally don't play PvT ever. Fewer than 50 games ever in my life have been PvT on either side of the equation. So I'm just going to kind of take it play by play. And I like the Twilight. I think Protoss can benefit from Blink a lot versus a Terran, especially if you get an Observer and you go to a position like this. VitalWinter thinking the same thing. Doesn't want any air units, at least no Phoenix, no Void Rays, no Observers chilling in this area. And I think that missile turret is just like so serendipitous. As I was talking about the observer tactic, maybe he watches a lot of pro play. Let's see if Jake also watches pro play. Let's see if Firebrand is going to make an observer here. Oh my goodness! VitalWinter reading Firebrand like a book. Blink, observer, but he needs 2 more gateways. The Robo Bay, okay, you could skip that. Right now, my man, you need 4 or 5 gateways. You have a 3rd base on the way. If you're going to pressure VitalWinter at this location with an observer, you need to go all out. The Adept not shading away in time. That interaction can be microed perfectly where the Adept shades away, right as the Widowmine attack goes off, but it just wasn't. Probably just wasn't looking at it. Now, the Reaper here didn't get any information other than seeing the 4 Stalkers, which is actually substantial information. So, nothing behind the mineral line got scouted. Oh, 1 more shot. There we go. That Widowmine almost a pain in Firebrand's side. The observer would have been right there, though. Now, I don't know about walking with 4 Stalkers. Against a Terran, who could have a siege tank right now, or 2, you should probably just ball up a little bit more and then go. The attack seems a little scuffed to me, in part due to this robotics bay and the lack of gateways. But at least his macro is good, and he's keeping his opponent in check. I think VitalWinter's macro is not good. You really want to not be supply capped. You want to be constantly producing. A command center down here to fly over would be awesome. However, I see a lot of similarities in the way VitalWinter plays all 3 races. He's playing Terran kind of like he played Zerg at the beginning, where he takes a research structure very quickly in the game. I'm not sure why he does that as Zerg, other than for melee upgrades on the Zerglings, but as Terran, that's how you unlock the missile turret, so it makes a little bit more sense if you're afraid of something like Jake's observer push, but it's never going to come. I guess Firebrand is just not planning on doing that attack, but he's chipping away at the depots, kind of realizing now that he can't get much work done. Hopefully he starts to rally the observer. That Colossus is phenomenal. I see now the reason this Robo Bay is so freaking fast, and I don't hate it, you know. I'm not a PvT guy. I don't really understand the interactions, but now that I'm seeing this Colossi with the extended thermal lance, it's making me excited to see how Firebrand's unit composition is going to develop, because I don't think VitalWinter expects a Colossus this quickly. Despite that, I'm just assuming we do see a starport. I'm going to bet that's for Medivacs. No, it's constructing a tech lab. So to me, that says Raven, that says Banshee. Ravens are great. You have to have substantial bio. Oh, he catches a Colossi. That is massive. Wait, I gotta do the thing. Sweet. My quality must be pretty low, because that explosion looked kind of lame, honestly. No Medivacs, so this tiny bio force is really just to keep Firebrand spending APM on his army somewhere. At this point, he doesn't know about the 3rd base, but it's safe to assume that if Firebrand wanted it, he could have had it for a long time, and he has. So the bank for VitalWinter is absolutely insane. He could do with 2 or 3 more factories. The Thor is a good unit here, I think. There's no Immortals. There's not a lot of charge lots, just 5 or 6. And the 2 factories, he did make them. Unfortunately for him, he made them outside the zone where he could protect them. Tank moving forward. Thor is kind of scary to look at, but honestly, these Stalkers do 18 damage to armored. Thor has 400 HP, and look, it's already just about dead. The Zealots won't finish the job. The Stalkers and Colossi are not blinking in, but if I was Firebrand, I would take the Stalkers and blink directly on top of this lone siege tank. Granted, he has no idea if there are more siege tanks behind, but it's safe to assume there easily could be, knowing his own bank and knowing the scale of his opponent's economy is so small. There's probably a lot going on in Firebrand's mind, like, where is my opponent's big army? He's only on 2 bases. But VitalWinter is just not producing hard enough. That Thor got fully repaired, and I think that's hilarious. coming back from the brink of death. Firebrand needs to reinforce this push and just end the game. He's making a Disruptor, a Colossus, an Immortal. He's getting double armor upgrade and his first attack upgrade. He's in a phenomenal position. This command center should be an orbital real quick, and if that could get mining with a bunch of mules, I could see a world in which, well, there's not a lot of barracks, but a marine flood could keep the zealots in check while the Thors punish the Colossi, but these Thors are bare naked. There is... oh no, yeah, they get hung up on the SCVs who were sent in to repair them. It was so sad to watch. Marauders, a good unit in this scenario, at least, I don't know, too little of everything. He just needs more of everything he's making and he would be fine. Maybe could deal with some medevacs. I haven't seen anything being made out of the starport yet, but would love to see a couple liberators. Colossi don't like liberators, neither do immortals or disruptors, and so far we don't see a Stargate out of Firebrand, so it would have been the... Alright, the disruptor getting saved. That's like, it's like you're at Walmart past closing and they lock you in. You call 911 and they bust out the thermal lance and they chop open the doors and let you out. One Thor, one tank, and a dream. VitalWinter, the ultimate engagement. Here it comes. The best camera control ever. From your observer here, as the Thor will fall. 3 Colossi, thermal lance, don't play. Stalker's not warping in, or blinking in, excuse me. Don't really have to, probably shouldn't against the planetary. SCV's being pulled, but the boys got scared, and they decided they just wanted to wait out the end of the game in the safety of the mineral patch. GG, 4 Archons rolling in, and VitalWinter ends the game with a bank of 2.5k minerals and 500 gas. Equal number of gas at the very end of the game there. That's kind of funny, but 179 supply to 47. That's game. Let's hop into number 2. Okay, game number 2. In the top right, spawning as the blue Protoss. Oh my gosh, it is Firebrand. And in the bottom left, spawning as Protoss for the first time, it is the random player, VitalWinter. Woo, woo! So it looks like he's going... These are actually really dope looking pylons. That is a cool skin. Going for a gateway on the high ground, mirroring Firebrand. Both of them a little late to their gases. They can open gasless, but I don't think either of them really intend to, so yeah, I think they're just both a little late. Firebrand with 2 gateways. Somebody's spam pinging. Probably one of your friendly observers. Oh, goodness gravy. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I could stop the pings by going into the options or something. Well, deal with it, I guess. There's a spammer on the loose. Full wall. This is a 1-base Protoss. Spicy. In that case, the late gas was definitely a mistake. I can't imagine he's going to be pushing with zealots. And so, I don't know. I think this is either DT or bust, right? There's not a lot you could do from 1 base as Protoss against another Protoss, unless you wanted to do something like, I suppose a 3-gate Robo is a very good 1 base, but even then I feel like you kind of want a Nexus. But I don't know what I'm talking about. The proxy pylon is messing with Jake's head, messing with Firebrand. That's very funny. He scouts it. I hope he lets it finish and then tries to send a probe back up there just to stop Firebrand from macroing. 2 zealots on the way. He got a little scared. He got a little bit scared. The probe patrolling here just to see, just to know if VitalWinter ever plans on taking a base. Okay, he needs to saturate completely. If you're doing a 1 base, don't not saturate it. Come on, 3 more probes. There we go. We need a... It's a Stargate? This game is full of surprises already. He lets the pylon finish, sends another probe back in there, another proxy pylon. I don't understand what these are for. It must just be mind games. That's the only explanation. Firebrand is deciding to go for Warp Gate, and I think VitalWinter is accidentally baiting his opponent into creating an army early. He doesn't want to do that. These pylons are actually hurting VitalWinter, not only because it costs a probe on the map and it costs 100 minerals every time, but also because you're freaking your opponent out. They're creating units, and then you're trying to one base all in them. You don't want them to have units. You want them to have as little units as possible. So I think it would have been better for VitalWinter to simply do his cheese and push out in a big surprise attack. But as we can see, Firebrand hasn't been too diligent about creating units, though that battery's on the way, and he does have a Stalker and a Zealot, and I think there was another Zealot on the field. If I'm not mistaken, I might very well be. Yep, only one. The drone count for Firebrand is quite high. I'm not seeing enough production here. I don't know what's being made. It's like a... Okay, shields and void rays. That is just bizarre. Think about this research cost. That is 150 of each resource, which is 100 minerals less than a void ray costs. It's also the exact same cost as a Stargate. So instead of one void ray being produced right now, VitalWinter could have 2 void rays being produced right now. But instead he opts for shields level 1, which isn't a useless upgrade, but it's a context dependent upgrade. Like right now you're not going for that longer game. You're going for like a very sharp attack on one base. I mean, otherwise why would you have walled yourself completely in? I like the gas. I feel like he's trying to fake Firebrand out by saying, yeah, look, I'm trying to take structures down here. I want a natural. And unfortunately, it looks like VitalWinter is kind of understanding the situation. He didn't have enough production on his one base, and he kept making probes. So it's not like there's 2 or 3 gateways in a Stargate. There's one gateway with no warp gate in a Stargate. The shield research won't even be ready by the time these stalkers get here. The photon is too little too late, as these stalkers will run up and find the lone void ray and zealot. They are a little too afraid of the void ray. VitalWinter coming in with 2 void rays changes everything. Firebrand is going to need to reinforce with his 5th stalker and the sentry, though the overcharge got completely blown. It does buy time for the photon cannon to finish. Firebrand, understanding this, goes in to try to pick and do some more damage. Should just focus on kiting and attacking as frequently as possible before the photon, though now that it's here, the position is a little more stale. And so Firebrand is going to wipe his tears away with his fat stack of cash on this fully saturated, this oversaturated second base, as he cries himself to sleep about just barely missing that photon and being able to bust VitalWinter. There was a moment there where VitalWinter did not have the second void ray, where I believe Firebrand could have won the game. However, it probably won't be on his mind for very much longer. The regret of missing the opportunity probably is fading pretty fast as he swells a bigger and bigger ball of stalkers, though he is supply capped, and well, that's just par for the course at this point. No production out of the Stargate of VitalWinter, and the shield upgrades did finish, so that would be way, way better if there was a battery here. And one is coming, but it's gonna be a little late. Firebrand says, "Where's your third base, buddy?" And VitalWinter says, "Oh yeah, it's in the other, I left it in my other pants." And Firebrand's like, "I'm checking your other pants, buddy, and I don't see it." So now Firebrand, realizing that there's probably a ton of void rays, runs away. He doesn't understand that VitalWinter has 1 Stargate when he could have 3. And so, I'm sorry, maybe I missed this. This is why his entire army is coming back? You've got to be kidding me. They're going to kill this 1 void ray. VitalWinter, with the intelligent plays, realizing he can't let too much of his army die across the map. Unfortunately for him, 1 void ray is still too much, but splitting it up like that and trying to do some harassment to bring Firebrand's big scary army back home was very smart. And I don't think that Firebrand is in a bad spot at all. Even though he went back, it's a very bad decision to go back right now. I mean, this is all that stands between him and winning the losers bracket. So I forgot to mention, this is the first round of the losers bracket. Whoever loses this match will be eliminated from the Bool Cup, or whoever loses this series rather. So it's all on the line here for VitalWinter. He needs to hold. If he doesn't, well, he'll never have a shot at $5. So the photons are nice. They're really denying the stalker ball from jumping him, but it's gonna get to a point where the stalkers are gonna say, I don't care if you have a super battery, I don't care if you have, you know, photons, I'm just going to blink behind you, kill the void rays, and walk into the main base. I would love to see a game more like game 1 where Firebrand opens with an observer and just jumps up here into the main and runs through the bases. He doesn't have to fight this frontal defense. This is something you would do against a Zerg. You know, if you're afraid against a lot of Lings, or I don't know, someone who doesn't have very good drop into the main potential. But yeah, against Firebrand, I suppose it's working since there's no Robo, there's no Observer. I just don't think it should be working as well as it is. A big wall in the front is probably getting into Firebrand's head more than it's actually keeping him safe from Firebrand's army. Now, Firebrand needs to spend his bank immediately, realizes he's horribly supply capped for the 8,000th time, drops 4 pylons, and hopefully a lot more stalkers. Now, Firebrand's no slouch when it comes to upgrades either. He's got 1 attack, 1 armor, and I really believe that attack upgrades are way better than shield upgrades. At least in this situation. VitalWinter, understanding that it's about to get real, sends his entire Void Ray ball away from his main base, pulling back all of the stalkers. Firebrand must know. I want to switch to Firebrand's vision real quick. He doesn't see it. Oh, he just saw it out of the corner. Looks back around. The Void Rays overcharging a very specific shield battery. Should just kind of be focusing the Nexus and then leaving if I had to critique this. Staying to fight the stalkers. Oh no, losing every single Void Ray. And that's the way the cookie crumbles when you're broke. Unfortunately for him, it's not looking too good. Let's switch out of Firebrand's vision. 3 Void Rays. He's got the speed. Flux Veins. That would have saved his life. Where's the Fleet Beacon? Yeah, that research must have just finished, because if he had that when he was right here, he could have flown up, over, and out, easily escaping the Stalker Ball. But here it is now, and he's got to face the music as he is moments away from losing. I don't know how else to put it. That is a lot of stalkers. There's no overcharge on the battery. And he lost half his Void Ray ball across the map. Focusing down the Void Rays, realizes it is game. At least he died with the coolest skins possible. Those were really cool photon cannon skins. Either way, yeah, Stalker Ball beats Void Ray ball if the Void Ray ball decides to like suicide itself. And then I don't know, the 1 base thing was kind of cool. I was expecting DTs, didn't get that. And VitalWinter missing, unfortunately, 2 or 3 Stargates that he should have had much earlier, realizing his mistake later. So a quick learner. Really cool to see this underdog perform so well against these players who probably play much more than him at a higher level by 1 or 2 leagues. So congrats to VitalWinter. Unfortunately for him, he is out of the tournament. Firebrand will be moving on to the losers bracket round 2, where he will face Hamburger. Okay, here we go. We are in the losers bracket, or as I like to call it, the lower bracket. Round 2, between Firebrand being knocked out by FancyFetus, I believe. Now I have to check the check the scoreboard. I can't remember if he got knocked out by Cserbs or FancyFetus. I'll check on that. Either way, in the top right we have Hamburger, who was definitely knocked out by FancyFetus. Yep, I got my facts straight. Both of these players were knocked out by FancyFetus, and they are squaring off against each other now. Down here in the lower bracket of the Bool Cup, competing for their shot at redemption. $15 is on the line. Win or lose. Well, lose. The player who loses this will come away with at least $5. And so, the opener for Firebrand. Firebrand, by the way, is a diamond player, as I mentioned in the very, very first series. However, he's diamond with Zerg. His Protoss switch was inspired by Harstem, I believe. Firebrand likes his videos and thought that Harstem made Protoss appealing enough to switch his main race to Protoss. BMO has always been a Protoss player, and it looks like Firebrand is denying BMO's ability to expand. I would love to see a pylon being thrown down. There's no Zealot on the way, therefore, losing the probe. Yes, the pylon! Wonderful. Let that finish. BMO will be forced to take a third base. Excuse me, Hamburger will be forced to take a third base. Yes, this should just finish. No Zealot on the way. Oh, the cancel! No, misreading the situation. Firebrand should have let that finish so that BMO would be forced to take a third base or create a Zealot and attack the pylon, but that would just delay the expansion for too long. So Hamburger over here with a proxy that he can't really afford. I'm not sure what this is going to be. Either a Robo or a Stargate. I'm not even sure that Hamburger knows what he wants it to be, but this wall in his natural is full. Creating a Stalker to put behind, as well as a shield battery. Firebrand, supply capped unfortunately, but sending two Stalkers across. It will be a proxy Robo, so let's get the production tab up here. Both players harvesting effectively from 2 geysers. Let's check the resources graph. Let's check the income graph, excuse me. Firebrand is a bit ahead of BMO, of Hamburger, excuse me, by about 150, 250 minerals per minute. And the gas is equal. Getting some chip damage on these buildings is nice. Not accomplishing much though. There are a lot more things to focus on, such as macro. Hamburger running out now. Get off my lawn! Goes back to the shield battery. 1 Stalker can definitely beat 2 with the shield battery supporting the single Stalker. And now that he has double, these Stalkers against Firebrand should really just retreat. An Immortal being chrono boosted out of the proxy here. This could actually hurt. If Hamburger was producing out of 3 gateways at home, and if he didn't have this forge, and if he didn't have his natural base, and it was more like an all-in, I think he'd be in a better position because the MMR differential between these 2 players is quite high. Losing a Stalker there, not what you want. Losing 2 is definitely not what you want. This Immortal needs to be recalled immediately, but there's no energy. Finally enough energy, but spends it on a chrono boost to chrono nothing. Just to get depowered. Oh, the desperation Hamburger must be feeling. Sending the Immortal in to get some damage. Needed to recall that Immortal, and he would have survived this. Well, it's not really even a push. It's just like 4 Stalkers kind of showed up, and now they're doing massive damage because of the lack of a proper response. The Immortal is being microed. It is going for the pylon when it should be going for the Stalkers. Well, I don't actually know. I think the pylon was a good call. It will cancel 2 Stalkers. No! They finish, and that is devastating. He's finally recalling it, but too little, too late. Oh man, every move was just 2 or 3 seconds off here for Hamburger. Honestly, a very close game. The proxy Robo was a good idea in theory, but not being able to hold these initial Stalkers, well, that's game. A very quick one. Let's jump into game number 2 and see if Hamburger can play a little safer. I don't know if these proxies are really working out. Hopping into game number 2 in the lower left-hand corner of Blackburn, our red Protoss Hamburger going up against Firebrand. In the lower right, the blue Protoss. Now, this is the loser's bracket. The loser of this will be eliminated from the tournament. So, very tough. Very tough match here. Hamburger with a very large low ground wall off effort. Now that is surprising to me. It's not like he's fighting a Zerg, so I'm really confused about why he's doing that. No gas is being taken yet. One being taken for Firebrand. Now, Firebrand also doing the double gate that he did in the previous game. Maybe not the same. I'm not sure how the gas timing shakes out. Would love to see him just instantly saturate the gas and rally to it later. Or rally to the mineral line rather through the whole thing. Just worry about getting 16 saturation on minerals later because he really wants those high stalker numbers. I might just be blowing smoke. But the Cyber Core is finishing for Hamburger as well. It is 2-gate versus 2-gate Cyber, though Hamburger has a bit more money due to not having gassed. So, making 2 zealots with his money. Now, I would have not done that. I would have taken the Nexus, but I'm also not Hamburger. His strats are his own. Oh no, the supply block for Firebrand must feel very, very bad at this point in the game. Hamburger putting down the pylon and letting it finish inside the natural base of Firebrand. I love that move. That's going to force Firebrand to attack or one base or expand out into the 3rd base location. To attack the pylon and then expand in the natural location is what I meant to say. He could one base all in. I'd like to see that as well. And this Stargate gives me hope that there's going to be some 1-2 punch. This is very, very late natural expansion from Hamburger. The 2 gas in the main only having 1 probe each on them is concerning. And Firebrand's probe saw these incoming zealots. The adepts will be able to just micro them to death, and this probe inside of Hamburger will die. Now, Firebrand's just going to march across the map. 2 more zealots come out, but we don't have any gas here for Hamburger. We have 4 zealots and warp gate research, but what we really need is probe production, a nexus, a shield battery, and stalkers or adepts. And we just don't have that. Firebrand's next 2 units are stalkers. They're going to clear the low ground. And make no mistake, Firebrand is not in a good position either. He's been supply blocked for so long that this Oracle is 0 seconds out of 37 and has been for quite some time. And only now this pylon's going to finish. So this Oracle should be in the mineral line killing workers right now. But alas, these 2 adepts are left with no air support. Kind of a shame. Hamburger's response to that was a little confusing, choosing to attack with the probes rather than the zealots. I think that Hamburger, if he spent his money properly, would be quite far ahead. But he's opted to bank quite a lot with no Nexus here on the natural and no shield batteries in the main or the wall. He's in some trouble. Here comes the Oracle. Let's see how many kills it gets. Forcing these probes to run all the way to the natural where there is nothing to protect them. A very, very sad journey for these probes. 9 go down. The Oracle out of energy will be very happy. That is 14 workers killed on the side of and just a GG on the side of Firebrand, realizing his position was no good. Still playable, honestly. If those adepts had been stalkers out of the warp gate, he could have afforded 2 stalkers, blocked the incoming oracles, and used his gateway units to defend against these stalkers. It looks like Hamburger, in my briefest post-game analysis, overestimated his opponent's position and underestimated his own, and through fatigue just decided to throw in the towel. He knew Firebrand had a fair position, but he probably thought it was way better than it actually is, considering how many times Firebrand had been blocked. I'm probably just super wrong here because Hamburger has 11 probes to Firebrand's 32, but Firebrand does not have a natural nexus. And if BMO just had this natural nexus, if Hamburger just had this from the get-go, the probe transfer would have been great. These two units, if they were not adepts, if they were stalkers, the Oracle gets a little bit thwarted, if not denied outright. That would have been game-changing, and his position all of a sudden would have been like, 1.5 base saturation against somebody who doesn't even have their secondary nexus up yet. The pylon block at the beginning of the game really devastated Firebrand. You could tell he had no idea how to respond to that. And in turn, he decided to kill it and then put a nexus there, which is just way, way super delayed. So some tricky plays with the proxy Oracle after the supply cap. Won Firebrand the series. BMO, Hamburger, has been eliminated from the tournament. We'll take home $5. All right, let's jump into the next series. All right, in the semifinals, we have in the bottom left, you know him by the name of FancyFetus, a purple Zerg in the Platinum League. And now in the top right, we have our red Protoss, Cserbs, hovering probably around Plat Diamond. It's not known for sure. I'm not sure when the last time he placed 1v1s was, but that's just my guess. Now, the MMR difference between these two players is much tighter than any of the games have been previously. I think these are probably two of our most closely matched players. Here in the semifinals of the Bool Cup, both of these players have already secured for themselves $15 at a minimum by placing in third. The winner of this match will go on to play Firebrand in the lower bracket for the grand final. And so the loser will, drop down to fight Firebrand, and then the winner of that match will come back in the grand final. So we see a pool first from FancyFetus. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Cserbs keenly aware that this is FancyFetus's signature move, is going to do a full wall off with the pylon in the back and a Cyber and a Forge. Okay, I think that Forge could have been a Nexus and things would have been just fine. So, I mean, the Photon Cannon's great, but Stalkers and Adepts in the back do almost just as well. That being said, those units cost gas, and Cserbs is a huge fan of going for Stargate play. So we can assume that he's trying to save as much gas as possible for things like Void Rays, Phoenix, yada, yada, yada. The first 6 Zerglings, I don't know how I missed those walk across the map, but they're chewing. They are chewing. The Adept pops out, the full wall. Very demoralizing for FancyFetus. He's probably going to walk away. I like the damage he's putting on this building, though. I'm not sure if it's worth losing the same amount in Zerglings, but that's his decision. It gets in Cserbs' head, prevented him from macroing. Still hasn't taken his second gas yet, and definitely hasn't expanded. He's actually built another Photon Cannon. FancyFetus realizing that he needs to take a drastic measure from all previous games and go for a macro follow-up rather than a big flood of Zerglings. Fetus is aware that Cserbs is trying to defend that choke at all costs and will probably over-invest in the defense. That's actually an accurate analysis, and so very cool, forcing Cserbs to pull away his attention from his macro, and that's cost him a few workers. Actually, we can see that FancyFetus is ahead by 5 drones. He just built a structure somewhere, a spore. Knowing that Cserbs is a big fan of the Stargate style, and knowing that Oracles hit around 345, decides to put these spores down just in case there was a proxy Stargate. And in all fairness, there could have been had there not been adepts and forges and, 2 gates in that wall. It was all a bit much at the wall. An overinvestment for sure. Tacking on another shield battery, showing just how afraid Cserbs is of FancyFetus's early Ling floods. Now, FancyFetus hopped on the macro bandwagon for a millisecond. He's already back to his old ways, banking 6 larva, banking an inject and a half, just now spent it. I think he really needs to saturate these bases ASAP. He should already have his 3rd base partially saturated and his 4th base on the way soon. But that's if he didn't grab a layer and a Hydra Den. Those are very expensive techs, and, well, I can't fault him for choosing it against a player who goes Phoenix almost every game against Zerg. The 2 Stargates are here. They're not producing. They need to produce as quickly as possible because they're already so late. 2 Queens spreading creep and Overseer to prevent DTs, I assume. An unnecessary geyser taken at the Nat. Really should just focus on saturating with minerals. The Hydras can wait. I mean, if FancyFetus sent his Overlord in, he would know that. But as it stands, what do we see in the production tab? Faster Ovies, so we can run them away from air units, except the Phoenix, so just Void Rays he'll be escaping from. That is without Flux Veins. A lack of Queen production is kind of a big deal. I would like to see more Queens on the way. This 3rd base, again, should already be completely saturated against an opponent who's going hyper-defensive Stargate. You need money against a player like this. You are dead without it. You're probably going to trade worse against their army because they have such a strong Sky Toss ball. Now here comes the first Void Ray, showing the tech, which wasn't a huge surprise, and also just trying to force FancyFetus to respond. Now here comes the Hydra Ball to try to corner it, but the Lings and the Overseer kind of give it away that it was getting flanked, and so that Void Ray will survive, and the Rally Void Ray will run away as well. The natural of FancyFetus, the Queen has 3 injects banked, the main has 1.5, and there's no drones being made. I mean, literally no drones. The Hydra Ball is moving up, but very underwhelming without upgrades. Just now getting range as his first upgrade. Honestly, at this point in the game, you should just use the Hydras defensively. Fight on creep, spread your creep towards the enemy base, and plan to go for a more Corruptor-based style. And if you see your opponent switch to gateway-heavy units, or gateway-heavy army composition, or a Robo, then you would go for Lurkers. So your Hydra tech isn't completely wasted, and that's a very good counter. But as it stands, Cserbs getting the fleet beacon up, and now he's going to be making carriers. Both players floating a significant amount, I would say. That's... Oh, FancyFetus just remedied that. I wonder what he just produced. Let's check the tab. 7 Hydras on the way, so that's 700 minerals right there. Now, he's planning on making an unkillable Hydra Ball, which sounds good against Void Rays. I mean, Hydra's not really known to trade super effectively against most things, especially when they're alone like this. The Adepts ensuring that these Void Rays are going to trade not only like on par with their unit cost, but like significantly better. The Adepts do bonus to light, 22 damage per shot, and Hydras only have 80 health, and they are a light unit. So 4 shots for one of those to go down, and then you factor the Void Ray damage. That was a very, very good trade. These Adepts help so much against Skytoss armies, against Zerg, it's not even funny. I mean, it's a little funny sometimes when you watch how well it trades, unless you're the Zerg player. So more injects being banked. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4 injects. And he stopped clicking before the 5th and 6th inject could be banked. Outstanding. How does the worker thing, how do the workers stack up? It looks like very few for FancyFetus. He should be on 60, 65 workers, making a lurker. 1 carrier coming with this army is unfortunately not enough. Going to lose some Void Rays first. The 7 Hydras that FancyFetus made just a minute ago are really coming in handy to deflect this sky pressure. Without them, and without proper queen positioning and control groups, I think it would have been a lot scarier. but the Hydras bought him some time, and now, truly, once he realizes that he just deflected this Protoss for the second time, kind of the third time, because the first ball of Hydras kept Cserbs at home, which is almost the same as a deflected attack. It's basically prohibiting Cserbs from leaving and striking at FancyFetus. Now, FancyFetus should have seen that and decided to macro a bunch, but I think the tone of this game has been more critiquing the style of both players rather than observing what they do in order to counter each other. So I'm going to focus more on the decisions they make to try to beat each other's armies. The Hydras are coming in and attempting to trade against this sky heavy army, but they get mowed down with, I believe, without a single kill. Maybe they killed a Void Ray. The Lurker is completely unanswered. Cserbs, I have talked to him before about this. He has expressed that he does not like the detection from oracles, which is mind-bogglingly stubborn. He absolutely needs an oracle with revelation in this army to get better aggro and to see things like lurkers. The reason why is because you don't need to make a robo facility to create an observer, and that saves you like a whole production structure. But I mean, it's one lurker. Thank God it's not like 4 or 5 or this base would be dead. The robo facility is on the way. Carriers coming in, 3 of them. What do we have as far as units for FancyFetus? Literally no units, except for 4 queens and the lurker that has since changed position in order to dodge that photon or to get a better shot on the workers, I presume. The carriers coming in and just torching this natural base. The drones get out in time while they focus the geyser and the spore, and they're going for the base now, but I really don't think FancyFetus can hold on. Only now does he make Hydras, and the 15 Hydras he's sending down are hopeless against this carrier ball. Carriers have 450 total HP. Hydras have 80, and so 15 Hydras against 5 carriers, not gonna cut it. This is definitely a game. All FancyFetus has to do is A move between the bases and he will win. This lurker is going to kill the entire, or excuse me, Cserbs needs to A move between FancyFetus's bases and win. FancyFetus's lurker is going ham, and FancyFetus says GG. That is game number 1 in the semifinals of the Bool Cup. It is currently 1-0 favor of Cserbs. Let's go into game number 2. Okay, game number 2 being played on Pride of Altaris. In the top left corner, spawning as purple Zerg, it is Wetnet FancyFetus. The bottom right, oh excuse me, I forgot the cool intro. It's FancyFetus. In the bottom right, it is the red Protoss. Bool Cserbs. Currently 1-0. This is a best of 3 in the semifinals of the Bool Cup. Winner is guaranteed at least $25. FancyFetus opening pool first. Cserbs opening with a gateway on the low ground expansion ramp. I guess you would call that the natural ramp. Cserbs checking to see when FancyFetus decides to expand. Understanding it's late. Should definitely put a pylon there. I think that would be just so funny, so useful. If you can split the Zerg and you're using a Skytoss base army and you know you're doing that in the mid game, then your Phoenix have a lot more free reign because the queens can't traverse between the main base and the forced third base location natural expansion very easily. So you can kind of run around Zerg like that, especially if it's here and you just fly over. I mean, the path for queens is so much longer. So a lot of pinging going on. Cserbs pinging something significant, something maybe not significant, I'm not sure. The assimilators are chilling. I don't know what to say. We've seen this before. 6 Zerglings coming across. Nope, only 5. Ah, there's the 6th. Let's watch this attack through FancyFetus's vision. He's right outside the ramp. Here he goes. Panning his camera over. Sees the photon cannon. Understands he can do absolutely nothing and leaves. Great. I wonder what Cserbs is up to. He's going to take his natural very soon here. A very bulky defense. No, he wants another photon. Now, in the previous game, the previous series, FancyFetus versus Firebrand, FancyFetus actually decided to go for a Bane bust on his second pool first opening, and so that was pretty effective. It actually really messed Firebrand up, and I think he could employ similar tactics against a player like Cserbs, who is clearly deathly afraid of handling the first few Ling floods. Or more like volleys. There's not a lot of lings here. So FancyFetus is apparently going for a roach bust. I think this is just an assumption. In his mind, he's just going to play a casual mid game with roaches, but truly you can't really invest too much in the roach later in the game due to the efficacy of the Void Ray, which there could already be one training or nearly on the field at this point. And so the roaches are very confusing to me. They haven't even been produced yet, so perhaps it's just security for something like a Zealot Stalker all in. This Phoenix having its way with the Overlord. Yeah. I mean, I didn't really mean for it to sound like that, but that's kind of exactly what happened. It's got 2 kills. That's 2 Obies down. This Phoenix is a maniac on the loose. The Spore Crawlers are there to help. This Nexus is a good time. I think FancyFetus is at a huge disadvantage. He doesn't have a third base. He's only ahead 5 drones. He really needs to get his macro in check if he wants to beat a mid-game Sky Toss, a late-game carrier-focused Sky Toss player, as Cserbs so often is. Now, Fetus opts to take Cserbs' gold base. I think this is just a taunt. It's just BM, actually. He should just take his own. I mean, Cserbs is so close to spotting this. I actually recall watching this game and was thinking to myself, you were so close, because look at Cserbs' vision. He doesn't see it's been taken. But this Phoenix control is actually pretty good. Cserbs is going to find it with a rally by sheer accident. But look at that. That is so BM. I mean, you didn't expect Stargate units to find that? Okay, let's focus on how the mid-game is developing for both these players, because we're about to approach what I would consider the mid-game. This hatchery's going to need a cancel. I'm sure FancyFetus is just watching it. He's watching it. Wait, did he cancel or no? I'm sorry, I need to rewind. I can't really do that actually without revealing the length of the game. I'm not sure if he canceled that or not. Regardless, that's a hatchery denied. And so very, very sad for FancyFetus. Down in workers at this point, down 10 workers, up in virtually nothing. Making spores. These Void Rays could do some pretty serious damage if they just attack the peripheral outlying structures. They could kill this Roach Warren. They could probably pick off a couple Queens. They could run around and kill this Spire from behind. I think maybe Cserbs is squandering some opportunity here. Both players are definitely squandering opportunity, evidenced by the fact that they have massive banks. They both have 1,000 minerals. FancyFetus has 700 gas. That's enough to make 14 Hydras. But he's not opting for Hydras. In this game, he switched it up. He's got a Spire, and he's going to make a massive amount of Corruptors. any second now. 6 Mutalisks. Now, against the Void Rays, Mutas, they're not too bad. They are fast, they harass mineral lines, and so you can keep the Void Rays bouncing back and forth. These Zerglings are in prime position to strike the third base that's being created. Fetus should absolutely double expand right now. He is so behind economically that he can't just take one at a time. And telepathically, he heard me, he took another base. 2 at once. Cserbs very indecisive about where to keep these Void Rays, not really knowing what Fetus is up to, just understanding that he was on 2 base last Cserb check. He's very confident after denying the gold, as he should be. That was a major loss, but he's also not spending his money properly, and his own third base is very late. So I think we need to see fewer Void Rays, more carriers. Just get to that carrier late game, or as Cserbs prefers, the carrier mid game. The Mutas are going to run right by the Void Rays. Cserbs does not have vision of this. The Phoenix, fast enough, is going to just barely miss that Mutalisk. The Mutas will come back to attempt to trade against this army. Cserbs, not realizing the danger, turns and decides to fight. The Phoenix should absolutely be microed, but, Fetus should absolutely micro the Phoenix down. Either way, more Mutalisks were lost than were necessary, but it was a very good trade for FancyFetus. He really just reduced the army of Cserbs to literally 1 observer. And so, at this point in the game, Cserbs is like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, my Void Rays were not enough to beat the Mutalisks, and my carriers are very late. Not only that, the production is very, very choked. He only has 2 Stargates. By denying this 3rd Stargate, FancyFetus has effectively put a stranglehold on the production of Cserbs. Now the units are better, the carriers can mess up these Mutalisks. There's only 5, and they push them away very easily. Cserbs has regained control of his main, must absolutely fix his production issues though and queue up more carriers. Just sitting on 2,000 minerals is not going to cut it. Immediately starts 2 more carriers, a 3rd Stargate in the natural base, and he starts to saturate his 3rd. So FancyFetus has bought himself enough time to kind of sort of catch up in the economy. He really doesn't have any drones though, so he's got the bases down. They've been alive for a while, but they haven't been saturated at all. The main is already halfway mined out, and both of these bases should be fully saturated. There should be a 5th, a 6th, a 7th base down by now, but when you're against someone who's going for early carriers like this, the Corruptors are a real monkey wrench in the carrier guy's day, especially when carrier guy doesn't have a Templar archive, doesn't have warp gate, doesn't have any gateway units. You can really mess their day up with a homogeneous composition of Corruptors. Just carrier, after losing the 5 Void Rays and the Phoenix, it's not going to cut it. The carrier's overextended. Don't see the Corruptors until it's too late. One of them falls. The Corruptors smell blood in the water. They killed 1 carrier. They're going for 2. No overcharge on the battery. They will get 2. And my god, the 9 Corruptors of FancyFetus just killed 3 carriers. The carriers can't touch the Corruptors. The Corruptors have 1 armor. 4 carriers down. The Observer going down. And Cserbs is in a lot of trouble. Corruptors using caustic spray on all the structures. The Void Rays coming out too little, too late. No photons are in reach of these Corruptors. No production, 1 carrier being produced in the main, but the main's halfway mined out, and the 3rd base is now dangerously exposed to link floods now that there's no air cover, I suppose, no air support for the Protoss. The Corruptor count has multiplied. There's 17 right now attacking this base. And the caustic spray is actually going to be too much. This 1 carrier cannot hope to do anything against this many Corruptors. Doing 22 to massive units. That's brutal. Cserbs' 4th base is up. He was in a miraculous spot, but unfortunately failed to spend his bank properly. He's on 3k minerals, 1.2k gas. He's losing to someone who's way poorer than him just because of a couple misplays with his army positioning and general lack of photons, general lack of gateway units. Cserbs' third base will fall to a massive Ling Flood. The Corruptors should just go hunting for carriers, even though there are none at this point, and that is game. Cserbs, no GG. FancyFetus rebounds from having a 2-base economy against a 3-base Protoss economy, and that was a miraculous counter. Corruptors really are brutal against pure carrier, and yeah, scores 1-1. The loser of this series will go down to face Firebrand in the losers bracket, round 3, I believe, and the winner will have to face the winner of that match. And so let's hop into game number 3 to determine the winner of the Bool Cup semifinals and the winner of $25. Okay, here we are, game 3 of the Bool Cup semifinals. Now, this has been a real treat to host and cast. I've never sat down for this long and casted StarCraft games for hours, but this is fun. Pushing my vocal cords to the limits. And clearly my understanding is pretty shallow, but I know enough to know that Cserbs, our red Protoss in the lower right, is making a proxy 4 gate. Wow. He's whipping out his wild card in the 3rd game of the best of 3, just as he did against VitalWinter back in round 2 of the upper bracket. And so, excuse me, that was the upper bracket. That was. FancyFetus, not really knowing what's coming, but unlike the match against VitalWinter, FancyFetus is putting his pool in the very back of his mineral line. The exact right place for it. You don't want Protoss to be able to run up your ramp and kill your pool. You want it in the back so you can train Zerglings, Spinecrawlers, and create Queens. Now, it's going unscouted so far. The hatch on low ground indicates that FancyFetus does not see this coming. Cserbs will not be supply blocked as the second pylon is coming down. He's just going to send tons of zealots, but FancyFetus, very diligent, never forgetful about creating 6 lings exactly when his pool finishes. If those were drones, a more lackadaisical player, such as myself, whenever I 16 pool and forget that I wasn't going hatch first, would sometimes be like, oh shoot, and they make a drone or 2 and they only have 2 to 4 lings, but 6 is going to be useful in this scenario. He really needs as many military units as possible, and right now the Spinecrawler should be training this Overlord not in a good position to scout. The Zealot doesn't give anything away yet. These drones are almost to the main base of Cserbs. If they get on top of the economy, he can't train any more Zealots, and that will be G. But we'll see what happens. The Overlord just gets vision of this. What's the response inside the main base? The Queen idling. We have more lings on the way, but it's impossible to outproduce 4 gateways. The lings are attacking the probes. That's great. Pull the attention away. The Queen is tanking damage, the best possible unit to tank damage, but it did not inject the hatchery. There are no more larvae on the way, or at least no bonus larvae. These zealots attacking low ground hatchery are actually focusing the incorrect target, though FancyFetus needs to stop throwing these drones away. He needs to wait for Zerglings, let the zealots run around, the Zerglings come out, and they will kill these 2 zealots. Cserbs is hopelessly split, but he will kill the low ground hatch, realizes that he needs to actually do something to the workers in the main base. FancyFetus only has 6 drones left, but Cserbs only has 4 probes, 5 counting the one at the proxy. These drones need to survive. These 2 larvae being drones was a horrible, horrible mistake. Those need to be Zerglings. If they're Zerglings, look at this amazing counter surround by FancyFetus. He built his spines in such a way where the zealots can't easily surround them, but those drones need to turn and help their Spinecrawler friends fight off these zealots. There's only 2 left. Realizing the massive economic damage dealt to his opponent, FancyFetus is still fighting for his life. 1 zealot versus 5 drones, but the drones haven't been able to mine, and so there's no money for lings. The drones are alone, and I'm sure FancyFetus just tried to queue up some more links there, but realized he's broke. He can only afford a single pair. Meanwhile, Cserbs mining from his main base. That is all she wrote. And unfortunately, FancyFetus is dead. He's GG with a slant. These two have had a little bit of a rivalry in the past, BRB stall out style. So I'm gonna fast forward this 4x. Cserbs just has to kill every structure in the game, but yeah, there's been a time in the distant past where these two are kind of trying to challenge each other to a 1v1. They are of similar skill levels, and so there's always a little bit of honor on the line when one of them calls out the other for a misplay or something. In team games, of course, you're going to have the senior and the junior, but these guys are pretty evenly matched, and FancyFetus feels kind of cheated out of that game. Totally expecting it, but at the same time, the response just in-game, he did not act as if it was a possibility, and so the drones being made instead of lings really messed him up. I feel like if he had a couple lings there at the very end to defend his spines, that would have been way better. He was on equivalent worker count, actually slightly ahead of Cserbs. So a very, very tight 4-gate play there. But that means that Cserbs will move on to the finals of the Bool Cup, and FancyFetus drops down to fight Firebrand in the losers bracket round 3. Let's go and watch FancyFetus versus Firebrand to determine who moves on for a position for $25 and who is kicked out of the tournament with a lowly $15. All right, here we are in the game 1 between FancyFetus and Firebrand. In the top left, Firebrand spawning as the red Protoss. Bottom right, FancyFetus as the purple Zerg. These guys are competing for who gets kicked out of the Bool Cup. This is the losers round 3. That is basically like the losers semifinal equivalent. So the winner of this match will go on to play in the finals against Cserbs, and the loser will take $15 and go home. So first we see a forge, a fast forge from Firebrand. Could this be a photon rush? Well, pool first from FancyFetus. If this was a photon rush, we'd see a pylon very soon. And there it is. Firebrand bringing something spicy to the tournament. Love it. Hope it comes down in time. FancyFetus kind of knows the protocol. He was able to get around. I think Firebrand assumed that pylon was going to full wall this area, and if that probe falls, it's looking like it's gonna. That's very tense. This is very tense. He needs to get some more cannons down, or, well, he can't afford it. He doesn't even get the cancel off on the first photon. He does cancel the second one, but he's 2 pylons in the hole, 1 photon, and he canceled another cannon. That is a terrible start for Firebrand. If I was FancyFetus, I would make only Zerglings and I would send them across. Not that he could know this wall isn't full, but I mean, just pump 3 larvae into Zerglings, send them across. What's the worst that could happen, right? You force your opponent to build more cannons, you delay their natural expansion, and you have your own on the way. And so he's delayed his queen. This photon rush really shook FancyFetus up. You can tell by the way his macro is slipping and the fact that he only recently put his drones into gas, but he did make more lings. Who's doing that? I'm so sorry. You know, I think I know who did that, but I won't name any names. Anyway, the pylons are down. FancyFetus marching across just reached the ramp, seeing no wall, is super excited about the prospect of just, oh no, forces a cancel on the photon. He's gonna kill yet another pylon, and the main is protected with a photon. To Firebrand's credit, he's secure against, well, up to, I don't know, 10, 12 lings. Any more than that can start to threaten the cannon. And that photon also doesn't cover the entire mineral line. It covers about 2/3. So yeah, FancyFetus could deny mining on the upper right of that mineral line. Decides to not. Decides to just get a couple pylons, and that's cool. He's going to wrap around that Zealot, so I hope. Zealot retreating to the safety of the photon. Firebrand's position very, very shaky, deciding to like almost go all in on the defense of his main base. Meanwhile, FancyFetus' macro is starting to kick off. Speed just finished. Will he go up and in? Yes, he will, but there's no value to be had. I would absolutely love it if FancyFetus had gone for a Bane Nest a little bit earlier and decided to just walk in, detonate on the cannon, and whatever probes decided to stay. That would buy space for the Zerglings to camp the mineral line. We see no units other than this one Zealot, and here comes an Adept after the Zealot, so Firebrand really just keeping his head above water, trying to breathe through a straw instead of a snorkel. He's really, really hurting for money, but there's not a lot he can do about it until he gets more Adepts. FancyFetus missing a very big opportunity to either push the gas and macro hard or make a bunch of Zerglings and camp the location of the natural expansion. Luckily, this 6 HP Zergling will delay the natural expansion of Firebrand a little bit longer, but it could be so much more. That said, we have a massive wave of roaches coming out, a play which Firebrand has no answer for, especially if these roaches were to morph into Ravagers. Not only could they bomb the photon cannons, but they would also trade fairly well against any gateway units that could come out. And so, Firebrand is making a Hail Mary Stargate, hoping for voids, finally getting his Nexus down, finally getting a shield battery. Things are starting to look more optimistic for our Red Protoss player. The main is very well secured. I would be surprised if that fell anytime soon, but the Ravagers bombing the photon in the back. This Roach is indecisive. He wasn't attacking anything until this Adept showed up. That's a dead probe and a dead Adept. Not really what you want. It did buy time for that photon to finish. The photon, please target fire the Ravager. It will, but unfortunately, 2 of those shots that weren't targeting the Ravager, all that was needed was one of those shots to connect and it would be dead. Snipes it with the freaking Stalker. That was hilarious. That made me like so hyped. So he's running around with the Zerglings, but he knows there's 3 cannons. There's not a lot he can do. He really needs to make more Ravagers and just bomb the hell out of Firebrand. He's starting to do that. I think Firebrand realizes his time is up. He's got a big bank though. This Void Ray is all that he is staying in the game for. The Void Ray is... it's here. It's doing work. Activating Photon Overcharge. That's a massive play. However, Bile's one-shot probes. He's very lucky this cluster of probes didn't get hit. That Bile could have killed 3, 4, 5 probes with a much better connection, but it killed 0. And so, Firebrand is ahead in economy by a whopping 9 probes after failing a photon rush, holding his main base with 3 cannons against 4 Ravagers and 6 or 7 Roaches and a flood of Zerglings with, I mean, 1 battery, an Adept, a couple Stalkers, and a Void Ray? Like, wow. By the skin of his teeth, he is hanging in this game, using the Void Ray on an Overlord. FancyFetus is probably like, oh my god, I knocked him down to 1 base and I traded so favorably early game against the Photon Rush, and so it's not really a trade, I guess, if you kill everything for free. And so the Hydra's coming out for FancyFetus. He might feel like he's playing against Cserbs because of the way he's overreacting to that Stargate. I don't mind Hydra against the single Stargate, but I think you could literally win the game with just Zerglings. If you just made enough Zerglings and Banelings, you could just stomp out any of the drones remaining without ever needing to directly engage the army, the photons, the batteries, and so he's playing it a lot safer than I would, but that's just his style, the Hydra against the Sky Toss, and for whatever that's worth, Looks like the Void Ray of Firebrand kind of out of position to defend the third, but in prime position to do some harassment, perhaps kill a drone or two, but there's no getting past that queen. And so the third base of Firebrand is canceled. Firebrand used to it by this point, having canceled his natural twice already. He's going to go rebuild that for sure. The oversaturation is very misleading. Effectively, Firebrand is only mining with 44 probes, 22 per base. That is 6 on the gases and then 16 on the mineral patches. And so he's kind of, you know, it says 51, but he kind of has 44. 7 probes lower than it truly shows, at least as far as the resource collection rate is concerned. FancyFetus, as the 36 drone man, is going to attempt some kind of flood. I think that FancyFetus again is just constantly and like perpetually, since the photon rush happened, missing opportunities to either gas, you know, excuse me, when I say gas, I mean push the gas pedal on the Ling Bane or push the gas pedal on the drones. Instead, he's kind of like, he's got one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas, and he's like feathering it, so he's like driving, but his brake lights are on, and it's very confusing. And so the overcharge from the shield battery denies this DPS of the Hydra, denies the Lings from, well, doing any damage against the photons. And here we see again FancyFetus in a position where Adepts and Void Rays are actually trading fairly well against his Hydralisks. Now, pardon my camera control, Firebrand loses 2 Void Rays. That's actually pretty huge, and FancyFetus walks away with 5. So that fight was a knife's edge, I believe. If there were more Adepts in the mix and if the Void Rays were behind the Adepts, would have gone much better for Firebrand. But the important part is that Firebrand is alive. He has more time, and time is what he needs right now to spend his money. FancyFetus as well needs to spend his money, but he's not on a timer, really. I mean, there's no threat of Firebrand massing up a huge army off of, well, 5 gateways and 1 Stargate. Not against a 3 or 4 base Zerg. But again, it's a question of economy. And Fetus just does not have it. He's trying to close the game out with this ball of Hydras, hoping that he can go kill like a 3rd base, and he's kind of realizing now, I can't walk in there, it's impossible. I just get shredded by photons and shield batteries and Adepts. And so he's just using his presence to deny further economic expansion, and that's good because Firebrand's main base is already halfway mined out. This is a 10-minute game. 11 minutes almost. Firebrand's base has been denied for so long, and it would be way, way worse if FancyFetus had expanded and created drones, but yeah, so if he created drones about 5 or 6 minutes ago, he could have this army and a fully saturated 3rd base. He could be trading against Glaive Adepts. So wait, these Adepts don't have Glaive. Glaive is 1 or 2 seconds away from being done, and he just threw them all away into the Hydras. Oh, that could have gone so much better for Firebrand. I did not even realize Glaive research was on the way, but had he fought there with Adepts with Glaives against equal number of Hydras, he would have probably taken 2 or 3 casualties instead of 10 or 12. I mean, Glaive Adepts trade against Hydras in an insane way. I mean, just watch this engagement. Granted, there's a couple more Adepts than Hydras, but look how fast they're firing, melting. 6 Adepts one-shotting Hydras. Amazing. Hydras have 90 HP. So, oh, excuse me, earlier in this this cast, I said that Hydras have 80 HP. That's not true. They have 90. I must have been playing on an old expansion in the editor or something. 90 HP, okay. And so an Adept does 22 to light. Pretty cool. The Lurkers coming out. I like that move a lot. Catching all of these Adepts with the Ling Flood is very, I don't want to say lucky, because FancyFetus was aware of these Adepts, but the fact that the Adepts didn't have a shade out, they just thought they could trade against the Ling Ball. FancyFetus taking a very good trade, denying the opportunity for Adepts to do damage to the economy. However, he's not burrowing his Lurkers in advantageous positions. He really should be sieging the 4th base at this point with the Lurkers, and should have 2 or more Lurkers on the way. yet he doesn't even have his third gas at his natural base. It's as if Firebrand has been harassing FancyFetus this entire time. That is how poor FancyFetus's macro is. It looks like Firebrand has done massive damage to the economy, but truly it's just a lack of drones being produced by FancyFetus and no other reason. There's no damage being done by Firebrand to Fetus's economy. It is all self-inflicted. And so the lurkers just out of range of this base. The 2 High Templar are literally 6 energy away from getting Psystorm. However, well, I don't know if Psystorm is researched or not. Either way, they decided to morph into an Archon. Upgrades, gee. Using this for the first time. Yeah, no Psystorm. Archon was the only choice there. These Adepts getting brutalized by the lurker. And this game is going back and forth outside of Firebrand's expansions. Very tippy. 3 Archons, that is a huge number against only, what is this, 7 Hydras? And the Lings are good, but the more Lings you have, the better Archon Splash is going to do. So it can be a tricky matchup. Now, the Lings and the Hydras are flooding into the third base. The Hydras and Lurkers got caught away from the Zerglings. Zerglings, in my opinion, should just kill the Nexus and the drones, and the Hydra should zone for them and retreat, or retreat, excuse me. And so it looks like Firebrand will be the one retreating. I believe not realizing the power of the Archon, but also very afraid of the power of the Lurker, as he should be. It's a very strong unit. That being said, there are only 2 of them. And so FancyFetus saturating his proxy base, the Adepts shading away, all 10 of them, and he really needed those for defense. Firebrand needs to immediately back up to his overcharged shield batteries, but he loses all 3 Archons before he can activate the shield battery overcharge. That is a major loss. However, shield battery is still able to function on these 6 Adepts, 5 Adepts, 6 Adepts, and 1 High Templar. High Templar barely surviving, no Psystorm. Psystorm on this position would change the game. Unfortunately, the research was never even started. And so, Firebrand is going to lose his natural base, the only mining base, as his main contains no minerals. This is very bleak. The Adepts attempting to kill the third base, they actually do kill the third base. However, at what cost? I believe if they were here to defend, I mean, he would still be alive right now. The Immortal should be an observer, for sure. And I feel like Firebrand throwing away not necessarily a 1 game, because at any point FancyFetus could have macroed, but FancyFetus didn't macro. And so, in a very real way, Firebrand was ahead even though he was down 2 bases. He just needed to position his army better, his much more technologically advanced, hard countery army. I mean, Archon Immortal is not amazing versus high numbers of lurkers, but against low lurker counts, you can trade very, very well. Now, the Adepts are all getting massive value. 9 kills, 7 kills, 6 kills, 10 kills. These guys, that guy's an instructor, 11 kills. Insane value from those Adepts. However, at the price of his only mining base. And, yeah. That's all. GG by Firebrand. And there the game stops. All right. I feel like we did enough analysis in the late stages of that game. Really just a lack of macro on FancyFetus' side made the mid-game very tense. It was very indecisive which way it was going to go. And after Firebrand created the superior army with that Archon ball, I thought for sure that he would be able to hold the second and third base locations. But FancyFetus just came in, plowed over him with some very, very tactful lurkers. If without those lurkers, I feel like it would have been a much different story, but they helped out tremendously. And so let's go into game number 2 of the losers round 3 of the Bool Cup. Ladies and germs, welcome to game 2 of the Bool Cup losers bracket round 3. We have FancyFetus, the purple Zerg, spawning in the top left, and in the bottom right we have Firebrand, the red Protoss. Now, FancyFetus, known for pool firsting, will do that thing. Actually, this is a very early pool. So pool first is called pool first because you take your pool first in the sequence of structures that you take. However, it is typically assumed that you do it at 16, and then you take your gas in your hatchery immediately after that, 16 supply that is. And so this is I believe I saw this was a 14 pool. So it is technically the spawning pool first, but it is a 14 pool, which is its own build order, and it hits much faster. Speed starts much faster. Basically, you avoid having to bust a wall down because you can like slip through, or sometimes I guess what I meant to say is you can avoid having to fight the units in front of a wall or in the choke of a wall because you can slip through. And so Firebrand, realizing that FancyFetus has scouted his low ground pylon, is going to abort the construction of the pylon. I suppose I was just not paying attention to Firebrand's opener. He wasn't trying to photon. That was a fake. He was trying to get in John's head. And so excuse me, FancyFetus is sending his first 6 Zerglings at a much earlier time than he has in the past, and this is going to hit like a ton of bricks, but he needs to be reinforcing this with more Zerglings. Unfortunately for him, he just forgot to make them, or he's deciding to macro, and Firebrand, with a split-second decision to complete the wall off. Oh no, canceling the pylon, not realizing his zealot was too slow to get in the choke. FancyFetus fighting it anyway, does not care. Interesting decision, very interesting decision to stay and fight. I'm not sure if I would have done the same thing. However, Firebrand did not have a second zealot on the way, and that pylon's going down. Big deal, big deal. And Firebrand is about to lose a worker on the other side of the map if he's not careful. No injects, that's 2 saved up, and it does look like FancyFetus wanted to reinforce, and he has the lings now. He just forgot. So these are hitting much later than a 16 pool would hit. These guys are like the reinforcements of the 14 pool, but they're not on time. And imagine if they were here right now, they could they'd be chomping this pylon down. It would probably have gotten canceled already, but they're just taking their time. And so what do we see after this? 6 more Zerglings on the way. Firebrand's main base is empty. It is all right here. And oh no, the zealot and the shield battery is an amazing combo. FancyFetus does not need to fight that. However, it's going to stifle further reinforcement. The probes are enough to kill the Zerglings, but a shield battery in the main, or another gateway producing units, sending this one zealot up into the main to help with the defense would be an astounding play by Firebrand. However, it looks like he's going to let his pylon die. He says, I don't need to supply anyway. And yeah, he's leaving his main base. He is out of here. And now he's deciding to fight. A little indecisive there, costing him a couple probes that he didn't need to lose. The zealot now turning and fighting off those 2 very low HP lings, but FancyFetus is focusing only on those 2 Zerglings, and he has not injected since that initial queen spawn. Okay, so we're going to see 4 injects. He's not even going to go inject that one on the low ground. He's just going to dump them all into the main base. All right, that is a very unhealthy macro ethic. If you're injecting more than once in the same base, you're either doing 1,000 things or you just don't know when to inject. And FancyFetus did not know when to inject during that fight there. Now he is insanely far behind. Why? Because, well, Firebrand has a secure wall, 2 zealots and shield battery, 2 gateway production, 2 gas, a cyber is finished, and warp gate is done. This adept, I wasn't watching, but it got 4 kills. That is amazing. He is 7 probes ahead. This game going very in favor of Firebrand. Now, I think if I had to speculate on what was going through FancyFetus' head, I would say he didn't trust himself to macro out of the 14 pool. He did his damage. He got the lings in, but again, the indecisiveness, not knowing whether or not to hit the gas pedal and make more Zerglings, or just to switch and macro off of his advantage, he didn't make either call. And so here he is in limbo. He was just floating hundreds of minerals, but he spent it on a Bane nest, 2 more queens, and another round of Zerglings. And so the 4 Banes outside of Firebrand's natural are probably 2.5 minutes late or more. These adepts are going to get caught by the lings. Should get caught. There we go. going to walk in front of them and stop them. They're not even going to attack or shade out. Big win for FancyFetus. He needs every edge he can get, considering his economy is 12 drones against 29 probes. Just that is unlosable territory for Firebrand. He has gotten so far ahead with the eco game. All he needs to do is produce on cooldown military units and he will be fine. These Banes coming in for a bust. Can the creativity of FancyFetus's attack undo some of the crap he got himself stuck in? And Firebrand left the wall open. FancyFetus not looking at his army for a good 5 to 10 seconds. Still doesn't realize the wall's open. Now he does. Detonates every Baneling on one Zealot. And the wall is secure. Oh, disaster. Those Banelings could have walked in and easily killed 2 Zealots, an Adept, and the shield battery. However, here we are with a big link flood outside of the base of Firebrand with 8 more Banelings morphing, trying to do the same thing. That sucks. That's really tough. Now, FancyFetus needs to make a call here. He's like, am I just going to contain and macro out of this, or am I going to go for this attack? And he's going for the attack, killing the Cyber Core, but not really. He's leaving half of his Banes behind. Too slow. He's like walking through molasses right now. Absolutely needs to, and he could be in the base. Denies the gateway from building. That's pretty big. However, the force that is now inside the base, I mean, think about it. He's down 8 Banelings because he had to morph more to bust back in. And so he's missing 8 Zerglings for this internal attack. Should go immediately to the mineral lines. If he's not reinforcing, there should be no plan to bust that wall back open. Now he's fighting 2 Zealots under an overcharged battery, completely squandering this miracle of a bust. Like, the fact that he got in at all at this point is a miracle, and to not kill anything but 2 or 3 probes is just outlandish. And so there's been this Adept thing going on that I haven't even noticed. Pardon me, but it's doing massive amounts of work. 2 kills on 2 Adepts and 1 kill on the last Adept. 3 on this one. We're just watching the workers killed go up and up for Firebrand. Kind of equalizing the score. Before I opened this tab, it was 15 to like 5 or so, but now it's 15 to 10, and when you're doubling your opponent's worker count, and I almost don't know what to say. It looks so unlosable for Firebrand. Just make anything. There we go. 5 gateways being dropped, spending that massive bank. This Immortal, oh no, having flashbacks to the Disruptor in the second game of Firebrand versus VitalWinter when he had to bust down his own robo with the Colossi. This queen is going to be a 200 energy queen. She's going to lose her purple bar because it's going to be completely full. And so imagine 8 creep tumors on the map just spreading endlessly to get vision, to get better trades defensively, but it's not going to happen. There we go, 200 energy queen. I think FancyFetus really had this game and then just kind of gave it up through a lack of macro. That's my main criticism of his play, and I've said it a lot by now, but it's hard to overlook in these games, in the semifinals, because the games are so close, and it is such a glaring issue that it is the reason why he's now in this position. And so if he can get him out of it, if he can get himself out of this position with the 200 energy queen transfusing, that's fine. I mean, that was kind of sick. I like the energy bank on that single queen for the transfuse. It was too little too late though, and Firebrand busts with an incredibly small army. But obviously we knew there was a lot more on the way. 3 gateways at the natural and 5 more in the main. 8 gate plus a robo versus 22 drones. Firebrand takes game number 2. The score is currently 1-1. Let's jump into game number 3 and figure out who goes on to play Cserbs in the finals and who gets eliminated from the Bool Cup with only $15 to their name. All right, everybody, this is the last game between FancyFetus and Firebrand. In the bottom left, our red Protoss. Firebrand, you know him, you love him. The man with the plan, or lack thereof, just kind of goes with the flow. It seems like he really likes low ground walls against Zerg. Kind of got a feel for his style. He doesn't play very sky toss heavy. Not afraid to throw in a Stargate or two, but often going back to those robo units, the Colossi, the Immortal, the really fun ones. But his opponent is no slouch, except when it comes to his queen injections. It is none other than WetNet's FancyFetus, the purple Zerg. His style, a bit more aggressive, actually way more aggressive than Firebrand's. Firebrand, known to harass, but FancyFetus is known to rush. He often goes for 16 pool, and he'll send his first 6 Zerglings across the map and show that first pylon and that first zealot in the wall. No mercy as he tries to wiggle his way in the base. Often once he gets inside the base, he doesn't really know what to do. And that's like a downfall, is target prioritization. He could probably get a lot more damage done in most cases, but nevertheless, like getting in there, I mean, that's the hard part, but he does it. So the probe finally dies down here, stalling the hatchery. 50, 60, 70, 80 minerals deep. Firebrand should not cancel this pylon. He should absolutely spend 100 minerals to deny FancyFetus this base. Cancels as he walks away, but the Overlord sees the fake out and he goes back and builds it anyway. Kind of a misplay by Firebrand, only just now taking his cyber core. I believe he had banked 300 minerals while he watched in excitement as his pylon was about to get canceled. He saved 75 minerals, and that may have attributed to the faster gateway, but I'm not really sure what to make of his opener other than it looks safe. I wouldn't mind it if he made a battery at the front rather than expanding quicker, because FancyFetus is very aggressive with these first 6 lings. He's going to wrap around the cyber core, and there's a lot of surface area there. Sneaks in 1 Zergling. The zealot should stand by. The Zergling going back. Firebrand with good focus fire, negating that extra 30% DPS or so on the zealot, and the zealot will fall, but not before trading very well. The second zealot should be in time to deny the next 4 Zerglings. It's an adept. Let's open that production tab. It's not in the wall, and that is a bit of a shame. It's actually getting surrounded. The focus fire is not what it could be, and FancyFetus finding a way, finding the chink in the armor, relying on his opponents to make micro mistakes with their defensive units. The probes coming down now. They don't want that wall to fall. And rather than focusing the pylon, the Zerglings turn on the probes, and that pylon gets up in time for the second hand gateway to produce an adept. And Firebrand stabilizes. Seems like he didn't forget to keep droning through that. Both of these players kind of learning from their past mistakes. It appears as if FancyFetus is macroing as well as could be hoped for making a Roach Warren so early. I missed that construction. However, he's got 2 queens on the way. All I want to see is like 6, 7, 8 roaches, and then just injects on the hatches and producing drones. I think that would be enough to take out the front defenses of Firebrand, excuse me. I think FancyFetus could run in and kill the Gnat with that many roaches, and then just be happy with that damage, macro up, and get out of this game. However, the 3 adepts of Firebrand are going to see the roaches and lings waiting outside, and so perhaps the defenses will get beefed up a bit more. FancyFetus not wasting any time, just trying to get some damage done. Those batteries should be used to repair the gateways, the buildings, if they decide to if FancyFetus decides to focus them. Ravager coming in. FancyFetus could afford 3 Ravagers, 4 Ravagers. The adept that shaded out, causing mayhem in the natural of FancyFetus, getting 2 workers, already paying for itself. 1 more basic attack, 3 workers, that's pretty big. And now, pushing out, morphing into a Ravager, but eating too much damage. The cocoon will just die and waste something along the lines of 20 to 25 gas in the process. Warp gates coming in. We are pretty tunnel visioned right now, but so are the players. This is where their focus is. More roaches on the way. Here comes the engagement. Lurker Biles smashing the Adept to pieces. The shield battery not enough to out DPS 2 consecutive Biles with that low HP Adept. Killing one Ravager Cocoon, killing the other. That was a big play. Now morphing in front of the face of the opponent is better against low damage units like Zerglings and Marines, because the Cocoons get so much armor that it kind of reduces the damage of those units to a very low number, like 2, 1, or maybe even 0.5. Let's see how much armor they have, actually. Oh, it's not shown. Well, Ravager Cocoons have a lot of armor, more than the Ravager once it spawns. And Stalkers have a very high damage, 13. So even though the armor of the Ravager is high enough, the Ravager Cocoon, excuse me, is high enough to deny the damage of a Marine or a Zergling, it can't really block everything from a particle disruptor. So morphing a low HP Roach in front of a Stalker Ball is questionable. However, the Ling Flood, yeah, that's what you like to see. Those shield batteries worth their weight in gold right now. The defensive formation of Firebrand's 2 pylons in the back and his gateways in the front is just, it's phenomenal. Like, FancyFetus is going to have to tear down the production to get to the army, and by that point, he'll have no Zerglings left. Firebrand made a mistake by not leaving some Stalkers in the wall. I think that the Zerglings should have gone in, done economic damage while the Ravagers chip away at the front. However, that won't be the case. Firebrand getting another Immortal out, and this is the last game these guys are going to be playing. And so FancyFetus just realizing too little, too late that he should have been making drones, and that might be his fatal flaw, and that might be the reason why this push is going to do so much damage. Spines, not quite the play at this point in time, maybe a little bit before. The bank of FancyFetus was, I don't know if you saw that, but it was just at like 1500 a few seconds ago before the Spines and the Ling Flood. He was able to spend about 500 minerals in less than a second, and so that's how you can tell he's floating a little bit too much larva. It wouldn't hurt to have Queens on the way and creep, and GG. That's a painful loss for FancyFetus. I feel like that could have been a much longer, more back and forth game, but quite possibly he got fatigued and just couldn't keep up with the tournament. I know it's like very common, like myself especially, but we won't get too much into speculation, too much into what was in his head. Firebrand clearly floating a lot as well, 1,000 minerals, almost 400 gas, and so both the players made plenty of flaws during their series, or made plenty of blunders during the series. They have their flaws, but it was really a joy to see the creativity come out, especially these Immortal plays from Firebrand and seeing the Lurker plays from FancyFetus. Very, very cool games. However, FancyFetus is eliminated from the tournament. He'll be taking $15 with him on his way out the door, and Firebrand will be competing for a shot at $55 in the finals against Cserbs. Let's go see how that pans out. All right, this is the finals of the Bool Cup. This has been, well, I mentioned it already, very, very fun for me. Hopefully very fun for the players. The response has been good. They all seem to be having a good time, and it's been a lot of work to cast these games. I was surprised by the length of all the games collected together. I don't know how long the video is going to be in the end, but at least a couple hours. Yeah, lots of fun games, lots of good times. The winner of this match, not only will they be having a good time, having a blast, but they'll be walking away with $55. The Bool Cup is a $100 cup, and the prize tiers are $55 for first place. Second place gets $25, third place gets $15, fourth place gets $5. And so, the loser of this match still walks away with $25. Anyway, this is a game between Bool Cserbs in the bottom left as the blue Protoss, and in the top right, our red Protoss. You know him, you love him. It's Firebrand. So, where do these two players stand? I think that these two players are the closest in skill relative to the Protoss race. I think that Firebrand on paper has more StarCraft experience, more 1v1 experience for sure. However, as I've mentioned in games prior, most of his experience is with Zerg, and so Protoss being his second race, now I guess he would consider it his main race, is still a bit hit or miss for him in some regards. I'm sure he would feel more comfortable with the macro cycle of Zerg, and the interactions for PvP are just absolutely absurd sometimes when you start getting into proxying buildings like Stargates. I mean, we see Firebrand scouting down here already looking for something. I would love him to check right here. Not sure if that's his overall plan or if this was just an attack command to chase down one of Cserbs' probes. But either way, the openers as they stand, it looks like double gate from Firebrand and a faster Nexus, but only a single gate from Cserbs. Now, no Nexus yet for Firebrand. Could easily be the case that he wants to pressure with high gateway counts off of one base with a pylon in front to feign a Nexus. But nope, he's just going to take the Nexus. Cserbs, meanwhile, already 40 seconds on his Nexus progress, more than halfway done. And both players still continuing to produce probes. However, somewhere along the line, Cserbs missed about 3 probes, 2 probes. Could be chalked up to chrono boost, though he has spent more on chrono than Firebrand has. Workers killed is 0, and so I'm not sure where those probes are lacking if he spent more on chrono. Perhaps he tried to chrono the first adept out, and I missed it. But the pylon, oof, the supply block, not good. I guess the Nexus kind of saves him there, and yeah, he's able to get his Phoenix out 1 or 2 seconds after the supply block occurs. Firebrand not making more Stalkers, making only 1 more, but deciding to go for 2 tech structures at the same time. He's going for a Robo and for a Twilight. Now typically you go one or the other until your natural base is done, because you want constant Stalker production off your 2 gates and your Cyber, or at least enough to deny something like an Oracle, which is around 3, 4, 5 Stalkers for then you're getting into snipe territory. But this is all just my very, very basic, primitive understanding of the PvP meta. Phoenix, very strong in PvP. Very strong just generally, but especially in PvP, where the high value units getting lifted is a bit of a problem. Now, Firebrand getting real cheeky with a Sentry hallucination. Let's see if Cserbs realizes that it's a fake. And it doesn't look like he catches the expiration of the Sentry hallucination, and so he's going to fly straight into Firebrand's main. Let's see Firebrand's reaction to these Phoenix coming into his main base. He's got a Stalker Ball ready, should be gearing up for another warp in. Your probes are under attack. Here we go, he catches it almost right away. Not even enough time for, well, he got 1 lift. Not sure if that resulted in a probe death. It resulted in 2. Alright, and so back to the everybody camera. The Phoenix starting to get more probe value. Unfortunately, the 2 adepts came along for the ride. I would like to see those Phoenix dance, bait the Stalkers out, fly back into the main, pick up more probes. It looks like they could still pick up at least 3, 4. However, they're on equivalent economies. Cserbs has some AFK probes, and he's just now taking his natural gases. He's got 1. Firebrand's just now taking his. Very tight game. You can see these guys are pretty evenly matched, tit for tat. I would like to see some harassment out of Firebrand soon, but it's very hard to do so when there are Phoenix in the sky. Third base. Oh, he misplaced it by 1 square there and had to cancel. That's 100 minerals down the drain. Not where you want to be in a mirror matchup, especially one this tight. The photons and shield batteries in the mineral line is a great choice against somebody with a ball of 6 or 7 Phoenix. Phoenix can typically shoot through the shield battery. It does kind of stall things out though. Their damage is much higher than the battery's heal rate, so it's not that effective. It's more effective against something like an Oracle, but a mineral line in your battery is never a terrible idea. Excuse me, a battery in your mineral line is never usually a terrible idea. It might be like a cowardly play sometimes if you're trying to like really squeeze those minerals, but it's often just way more value when you're getting attacked and you're on the defending end of things. You are like, thank God I made those shield batteries, and they only cost 100. That's a lot of HP. 36 shields per second. Every 3 shields drains 1 energy from the battery, and so they're effectively not only worth 300 HP in terms of their own shields and health, but they can restore up to 300 HP. HP meaning like shield HP to friendly units. So that's for 100 minerals. That's easily double what a zealot would give you, assuming the battery doesn't do any of the tanking itself. It's just amazing. 2 to 4 zealots of value per battery, and you can overcharge them. I just gush over the structure. It is so unbelievably good. When they added it to the game, as a Zerg, I was like, oh no. I'm so used to just kind of chipping away at the walls and breaking structures and killing the units in the walls, but now those batteries are going to change everything, and they definitely did change the meta in every matchup. And so the massive Sky Toss ball of Cserbs is coming to play. Firebrand with his Stalker ball in a decent position. He has enough Stalkers to deflect this, and he's scouting around but just barely misses it with the hallucinated Phoenix. Let's hope he doesn't make a bad call and move out. Cserbs saw the Phoenix, the hallucinated Phoenix, and is chasing it, believing it to be a real unit. A real Phoenix attack from his opponent. It is so funny to watch Cserbs believe this is real, and he'll figure it out soon. He sees the Phoenix inside his main base, sends all of his units back to attack it, and then he's like, oh, it was a ploy this whole time. Meanwhile, the other Phoenix getting information, that one is a fake as well, and here comes Firebrand to do some real damage. But the Void Rays, they have flux veins. They are incredibly fast. Even with the overcharge, they're able to move quite quickly. Still should fight with the Phoenix though. Phoenix going much faster, going much farther ahead. I would say overcharge really hurt Cserbs there. Killing the Stalkers. Doing a good job. Needs to continue to put on the pressure. Firebrand has just thrown down some more Stalkers with a warp in. 3 dead sentries. Not what you want to see. Those would have been pivotal in this defense. Guardian's shield covering the Stalkers, blocking 2 range damage per attack, and these Void Rays do 7, 11 versus armored, so it would bring that down to 9. It's as if you gave all your units +2 armor and shield armor. So sentries, really good units. Unfortunately, won't be having them this fight, but also won't need them this fight because Cserbs decided to back away. I believe that was because these batteries were a little threatening. They could have been overcharged, and so Firebrand opting to macro 4 bases. Cserbs is in a tough spot because his third is not even halfway saturated. With the probe transfer, it's about halfway, and so he's taking his 4th base as well, while simultaneously attacking the 4th base of Firebrand. Sorry, I'm not sure what's happening with my camera. But either way, the Stalker ball, it's a good ball. It's got blink, but look at what's happening here. The Void Rays playing in the dead space could have, should have gone into the main. Disable every pylon powering these gateways. There's only 2. And I mean, that is going to be a mess for Firebrand to clean up. He's so worried about the Void Ray coming back to the low ground that he's not splitting any of his army to go to the high ground. And when you're fighting equivalent amount of resources, you don't want to split your army up and let the large, what am I trying to say exactly, is these Void Rays can clump up and fight as a group, but in order for these Stalkers to defend adequately, They need to split in half, one half here, one half here, and then the Void Rays can just take them one by one, fight this ball, then fight that ball, and you're never really engaging the entire Stalker ball. That's the beauty of the air unit, but it's effectively the same mineral and gas value. I guess we could see, I believe there's a way to tell. Army supply, minerals, name panel. Let's check army supplies. Looks like Firebrand has a lot more, however, oh, I'm looking at the worker supply, my bad. Firebrand, many more workers. About 25 to 30 more workers. That is insanely high. I think he's in a great spot. He just needs to transition out. Transition to, there we see the Stargates in the main. Would like to see those more along the lines of the Gnat. This base is kind of a goner if Cserbs decides to plow into it with his Void Rays, and so what we see is a massive Stalker run by, but something tipped Cserbs off. Maybe Cserbs just wanted to go over here and harass the fourth or fifth base location, but doesn't see the Stalker ball. Very surprised by that. A blink forward. I think Firebrand should just fight this. There are about 15 Void Rays, but until the Stalkers died, there was about 40 of them. And there still is. There's 41 on the field. We can see his control group here. Cserbs playing without control groups. I mean, for his army anyway. Just using F2. Very exploitable. This run by with the Zealots is going to cause Cserbs to F2 his entire army over here. And at the same time, Firebrand should push in to this location. The Zealots should honestly go over there, but they don't know about its existence, and so he can't be faulted for attacking the third base. The Stalker ball really just AFK. Using the observers should go to this high ground location and blink in while the Void Rays are preoccupied with these 3-4 Zealots. He kind of gets the hint. He's going now, warping in another round at home. Massive bank. His eco is being squandered by his limited production. Effectively, he's throttling himself by forgetting to make more gateways or queuing up units in those Stargates. But I think right now he's like, oh no, I have made a huge mistake fighting into overcharged Void Rays, not blinking away, not splitting my army properly, poor control. He's going to go back home and realize, oh shoot, I made these Stargates and forgot to queue up a bunch of Void Rays, and he needs to do that right now. He needs to chrono these, needs to make 3 more, he needs to make 6 more. I don't know, spend your bank, Firebrand. Spend your bank. Get a couple more sentries. Needs to stop losing them without the Guardian Shell popping. Okay, this is kind of a blunder, moving his Stalkers so far back into his infrastructure, because that base just gets sniped and the Stalkers weren't there to help it out. And I mean, the supplies are still very much in favor of Firebrand. The army supply is, well, slightly in favor of Cserbs, but the worker supply is almost double. 92 probes in favor of Firebrand to the 51 of Cserbs. That is gnarly. You could trade resources at a 2-to-1 deficit, if you get my meaning. You could lose twice as many as your opponent loses and still come out equal. That's what happens when your economy is twice as strong. So that changes the whole dynamic of the game. You can just start pumping and flooding, and it's on your opponent to micro. And so I didn't notice this run by. That is hilarious. Recalls half the Void Rays, actually being forced into some kind of fake split by only being able to recall so many of his Void Rays, now being doubly effective on the map. These 6 remaining Void Rays get a little skittish, get cold feet, and they run out away. They don't see the Void Ray production of Firebrand in the main. And all things considered, I'm very hopeful for Firebrand to take this match because his advantage is so strong. 84 probes to 48. He managed to clear something around, I don't know, 6 or 7 probes. Let's check the workers killed. 23 in favor of Firebrand. Cserbs no slouch either, having killed 15 but just failing to produce his own. So the Stargates are not getting chronoed. Are there chronos available? There are plenty. the air upgrades for Cserbs are much better than they are for Firebrand, having 212 as opposed to Firebrand's, I believe, 011. And so disabling the critical Artosis pylon, that is a massive error. Right now, Firebrand should be teleporting in, using Blink to get under the Void Ray Ball to trade more favorably, or he should back away entirely. But the Artosis nailing the production, disabling 4 gateways and 3 Stargates that were so close to producing another round of 3 Void Rays and 4 Stalkers, that would have tipped this battle a little further into Firebrand's favor. But unfortunately, Firebrand is only warping in from 3 gates right now, and this Immortal from Cserbs is here to answer the Stalker Ball, kind of realizing that Firebrand had chosen to stay on this Stalker homogeneous composition for the entire 17-minute game, only at the tail end incorporating 6 or 7 Void Rays. And I think from this point on, it's just going to be a total walk in the park for Cserbs. He has 16 Void Rays here versus 4 Stalkers and some Static D. Overcharging now. Doesn't really matter what he focuses. He's going to run over everything. Firebrand trying to restart some production on this far west base. I believe that's his 6th base location. This is his 7th, and he just lost 3 bases. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like this is his 5th and this is his 6th. But either way, the Void Rays catch on and they're here. There's not enough time to warp in enough Stalkers. Needs to overcharge. That battery is going to get sniped immediately, and there's really no hope. He understands this. GG's out. Man, what a crazy game after being ahead almost 40 probes. Just not teching up, getting no additional Void Rays, failing to defend his main base, actually walling himself out with this gateway. This gateway might have very well caused him to lose the game. But of course, there's many factors. I think that Psystorm for the Void Ray Ball would have been fantastic. Cserbs at any point could have transitioned into something more substantial like carriers, and then it would be even harder for Firebrand's low-tech army to win. But yeah, there's a lot of ways both players could have closed this out a little faster. Either way, really fun to see the creative plays with the sentries creating the hallucinated Phoenix and watching Cserbs go back to his main to try to catch them and thinking they're real, and just generally juking out Cserbs with the position of a Stalker Ball, accidentally running into him at this location during that run by. Yeah, what a game. That's all there is to say about that. Let's jump into game number 2 between these guys. Right on, here we are in game number 2 in the Bool Cup finals. In the lower right, the red Protoss. We have Bool's Cserbs. Oh wait, hang on. Excuse me, let's try that again. We have Bool Cserbs. Alright. Top left, playing for himself. It's the blue Protoss, Firebrand. Yep, I'm the master of hotkeys. Gates on high ground. Similar openings, except for the Pylon Scout by Firebrand and the Gate Scout by Cserbs. Firebrand will get slightly faster information if he goes into the main, though not a lot to discern other than seeing the pylon in the wall. Firebrand put his pylon behind the wall. Little differences. The gas for Cserbs finished up. He's piling right in because he knows he's going to want as much gas as possible for those high-cost Stargate units. Firebrand queuing up 5 probes. That's a bit peculiar because he could be creating a Nexus on low ground. Peculiar? I'm not sure. Either way, the Cyber Core timing a slight bit delayed for Cserbs, but also equally delayed for Firebrand. I'm not sure if he bought himself too many probes and couldn't make it in time or what that was about, but both players having 2 gases, Firebrand rallying into his. We can see the income graph for both players is just remarkably similar. Firebrand having 16 probes harvesting. How many units? Equal number of probes So I wonder why his income is higher. Cserbs must have just funneled into gas a little bit faster. Low ground, Nexi not being taken yet, though Firebrand clearly has aspirations. Both players opting for some kind of early game, I don't know what you call force multiplier. Firebrand with the double gateways, Cserbs with the Stargate. Kind of a callback to the previous game where Firebrand favored that gateway heavy composition, even knowing that his opponent favored the voids, and Cserbs, knowing his opponent favors the stalker based compositions, opting instead of double gate for a no warp gate and void ray. A Phoenix, excuse me. I fully expected that to be a void ray. It's a little bit concerning now. These adepts are going to come in almost unchallenged, except for Cserbs' singular adept. Now, that means he's going to lose probes if Firebrand plays this out. Lifts one, the other should just fight and lower that adept, so the shade is pretty good, actually. I'd take back what I suggested earlier. He is the master. He is in control of these adepts. Though taking damage from that adept is pretty unnecessary. He needs to get his second adept in here fast. And yeah, he's gonna trade out with it. Oh, he missed a shot there. Okay, that was a little sloppy, but he's back to harvesting probes. In the meantime, Cserbs' second Phoenix is coming out. That's a 4-kill adept, going to be 5. If he micros, possibly 6 or 7. This is huge. The workers killed so far is 8 in favor of Firebrand in a mirror matchup this early. That is insane. That is insanely good. Not only did Cserbs forget to produce probes from both of his bases during the defense, but Firebrand did not forget. He's transferring right now 7 probes to his natural, 10 probes to his natural. He has 34 versus 18, and already he is set up for a phenomenal game against Cserbs. But will the tech of Cserbs be enough of a trump card against an opponent with double the economy? It was in the previous game. Let's not forget. He had only 40 probes against about 90 of Firebrand's, and so he still won that game due to his superior Stargate tech. Will that be the case? This forge kind of out of place. I'm not really sure why he made that. Perhaps a misclick, perhaps he wants some photons, maybe he's not really sure himself. The Robo and the Twilight side by side, he kind of realizes, I feel like that's a subconscious maneuver. He's like, okay, I gotta have diversified tech, but in my opinion, just a Twilight would have sufficed. I don't think a Robo against an opponent who's going Stargate is very useful. Especially not when you create the Robo and the Twilight at the same time and then begin Twilight research. He's only operating on 2 gateways. Cserbs coming in with this double Stargate production to snipe some probes, and he gets 2. He should be lifting sentries, in my opinion, and he does do that. Very weak, very high value targets. Let's go to the resources lost area. I'm not sure where that would be. Units lost? There we go. So resources lost for Firebrand is almost double what Cserbs is. Well, it's 650 more. That's not almost double, but that's substantial. I suppose when you have this many workers, though, like I was saying in the previous game, you can afford to trade at a loss. Because you're earning so much money that your bad trades are actually just fine. And so the Phoenix getting what they can, keeping Firebrand at home. The rally, the probe rally, Cserbs known for this. The probes off of his Nexus, 1, 2, 3 probes are heading into battle. Now, if I was him, I would just take these minerals and pretend like it was intentional, but this guy going in for a scout, seeing what's up. Your probes are under attack. Let's check out his camera. Doesn't even phase him. Maybe it did, but we didn't catch it. And so Firebrand should be making more gateways right now. More gateways or some other production structure. He doesn't want to get caught in the death spiral of having more money, but never having enough production to create units to stop your opponent's army. And that's kind of where he was at last game. Both players opting to just defend themselves. They realize they're up against somebody of equal caliber, and so they don't want the harassment to do any damage. The Phoenix are horribly idle. They should always be in play. You have nothing to fear. You always know where your opponent's army is, and you can get worker damage. So each Phoenix can lift up to 4 units if it has full energy. 1 at a time, of course, but they do not have full energy. In a perfect world, either way, the Stalkers coming in, sniping the Photons without a cancel. The Phoenix lifting up these Stalkers. I feel like the Stalkers could have traded out there a little better. Cserbs is clearly not using rapid fire on his Phoenix to lift multiple targets instantaneously. Instead, he's just Z-click, 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 you know, using the ability and then clicking on a target, and that's much slower than just holding the button and rapid firing. Losing a Phoenix or 2, oh, that's painful. Stalker Ball is increasing in size. Now, Cserbs realizes, he says, okay, I got too many Phoenix right now against an opponent who's going mostly Stalkers. I need Void Rays. I need anti-armor damage, consistent, not energy-based damage. And so he's going for that. But Firebrand is completely saturated on his third base, and Cserbs hasn't even started yet. There's no shield battery. There's no photon. The Phoenix are getting gunned down. He's going to need to do something drastic to save this third base location. I don't know if he can even do a probe pull. There's just too many Stalkers. If he had more gateway units, you know, even if they were just adepts, I think he could do something like that, but it's just not shaken out. He lost his third base. Meanwhile, Firebrand realizes his economic advantage is as solid as ever, takes a fourth base, and forgets to saturate the gases in his third. That's kind of a big issue, but when you're operating off of, don't tell me he only has 4 gateways. When you're operating off 4 gateways, I guess it's kind of hard to spend 3 base of gas. So he's going back home, kind of realizes his bank is getting pretty high and he should start buying things, but he doesn't really know what to buy, so he's just buying more Stalkers. And he could use some upgrades. I think if you don't know what to do and you're constantly banking, just get double forge upgrades. Heck, do triple forge. Maybe a Stargate or 2 just to put yourself on an equal playing field. You want some air control. The Phoenix are obviously beasts of the air, but if you can make a few of your own and keep them over shield batteries, you can amass a similar ball. There's only 6 on the field, so it wouldn't be that hard to catch up, especially when you could protect them with your own Stalkers. Now, the Stalker Ball is a bit timid. It's letting these Void Rays get kind of out of control. He needs to go back in, snipe the third, and run away. I think that's exactly what Firebrand has in mind. Meanwhile, Cserbs is hiding these units on high ground where they can't be jumped, but that also means they're not in position to defend. Activating Overcharge, unfortunately, that base will die with no cancel, minus 300 minerals. The Void Rays doing pretty good work against the Stalkers, but for every Stalker that dies, a Phoenix dies, and a Phoenix is worth slightly more than a Stalker. So, kind of a big loss for Cserbs, who is literally 2 base against 4 base. Definitely not figuratively. So Firebrand should just make a big warping of Stalkers and walk and win the game. I don't know. A bunch of Zealots. It seems very over from my perspective. This mirror matchup is only throttled by Firebrand's lack of production structures. Said it a lot, but it seems to be the recurring theme in his play. Cserbs may be the fatal flaw with his plays. He gets a little too pigeonholed in the Stargate F2A move kind of strats. And it looks to be the case here. He has no choice but to fight. The Stalkers running him down with Blink. They would be able to catch him no matter what. He's forced to take a terrible trade, and no GG. Cserbs is out of here. Firebrand has left the game, and that was a pretty clean one by Firebrand. Never was Firebrand really behind at all. He did massive early damage with the initial 2 adepts. Really, that 1 adept at the end there. I mean, that hero adept got, 5 kills of its own, and his friend got a couple. So he was up like, let's see, workers killed. At the beginning of the game, the workers killed matter a lot more than they do at the end. Either way, really fun game to watch. Back and forth. Not so much this one as the last one. This one was kind of a stomp from the beginning. And I think Firebrand can thank his 2 gateway opener versus the Phoenix first of Cserbs with no warp gate. And so neglecting that warp gate, choosing a Phoenix instead of a Void Ray really set him behind. So yep, early decisions tend to snowball. That was game 2. The final game is coming up between Firebrand and Cserbs, but I just want to say while we're here in post game one more time, it's been a real treat having everybody sign up for the tournament and play their hearts out, and win or lose, cheese or troll, it's been fun. It's been something I hope to do again in the future. So thank you guys for playing. I know I'm speaking directly to the people who played in the tournament. I'm sure they'll be watching themselves in this video, but I'm also speaking to the people who just happen to find this video and like watching the Bool Cup. Before we get into the finals, I want to just say, if you want to contribute to the prize pool and have more Bool Cups or larger prize pool Bool Cups, send me $5. My paypal.me account is paypal.me/SawyerNichols, SawyerNichols. You drop me $5 and just give me a little note that says Bool Cup prize pool donation. It would be very much appreciated. I will put it towards the next pool. But thank you so much, guys. Let's jump into the last game of the Bool Cup to see who takes the $55 grand prize and to see who goes home with diddly squat between Firebrand and Cserbs. Here we are, the final game of the Bool Cup, currently tied up 1-1. In the top right corner, we have our red Protoss, Bool's Cserbs. Yeah, woo, the crowd goes wild. Yeah, Cserbs. I love you, Cserbs. Okay, and down here, bottom left, it's your boy. It's blue Protoss, Firebrand. Yeah, woo, Firebrand, Bool Cup Grand Finals, yeah, woo. We love you, Firebrand. Sign my face. Okay. The crowd really loving it out here at the Bool Cup. we see what? Gateway on high ground. Both players. Pylon in the back, signature Firebrand. Pylon in the wall, signature Cserbs. 2 very confused probes. They're like, I'll build it. He's like, no, I'll build it. He's like, no, I insist, I'll build it. He's like, I would really like to build it. Eventually the Protoss hierarch comes over. This guy in this portrait here, he's like, I don't care which one of you builds it, but if I don't get my gas, no, I don't know. What's the punishment? Do you just get like kicked off the pits of slain? You have to like 1v1 Alarak. He does have the Tal'Darim High Lord skin going on, so yeah, his probes are probably doomed to 1v1 Alarak. Gateway, Cybercore. So this is a interesting divergent build from Cserbs. Triple Gateway Cyber means he wants to really push early. There's no room to afford a Nexus off this, at least not in any reasonable amount of time. So he's hoping to do massive damage to the economy of Firebrand, but Firebrand might think he has the edge with his 2 gateways. If he plays 2 gate against 3 gate and he makes a Nexus, he's going to be horribly surprised. It looks like a chrono boosted Stalker, and that's exactly what we see out of gateway number 2. Yes, there it is, a supply cap. Pretty devastating. Drops the pylon, immediately understanding, oh no, I've just blocked myself. Somehow he gets one up. Oh, proxy pylon. Scouted by Firebrand. Check it out. He's just looking for proxies. He sees it, but what does he do about it? Goes back home, checks his natural location, and not all too much is happening. He's banking a lot of money, but he decides to make another purchase. He had 400, but he queued up 2 stalkers. He's kind of wise to this. He says, proxy pylon, there's something coming my way, isn't there? Cserbs' first stalker is just waiting finds the adept, starts opening fire. Stalkers are pretty good versus adepts. I favor them in terms of like kite ability. They have an extra range, 6 opposed to the adept's 4, so +2 range advantage. And they're going to go all the way back home to shut these adepts down. Now, I mean, I think he shouldn't be doing that. I think these 3 stalkers should have pushed forward, started trading, because the reinforcement stalkers would have been enough to kill these 2 adepts. Either way, his decision worked out. The adepts only got 3 probe kills, and so that's significant, especially when you're fighting someone who went 1 base. The probe count of Firebrand is 29. Cserbs stopped a long time ago. Here comes the warp-in, 2 stalkers at the proxy pylon, and he's marching a grand total of 7 stalkers from across the field. He's going to hit like a truck with 10 stalkers. Firebrand, supply capped, should definitely get his probes involved here. He should know that as soon as you see this many stalkers, you need to pull the boys and trade like your life depends on it, your economy away. Remember, he has 31 probes. Cserbs only has 18. He can afford to lose at least 10 or more. Buying time with the force field. It's not quite in position. I would have loved to see it more like at the bottom of the ramp, but I'm not sure when this sentry was created. It might have just popped out of the gateway. This is brutal. 3 shield batteries coming up. He's taking too long. The deep power, the warp gate research, just a second or so, 4 seconds away from finishing. Cserbs warping in reinforcements. Firebrand horribly supply capped, not pulling the boys, finally realizing it's time, now or never. Has to surround it. This is for everything. This is for the Bool Cup, $55 grand prize. Cserbs focusing down pylons now, trying to depower all 3 batteries. There's a call right there, picking off stalkers one by one. The boys went back to work. La 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 la. They thought it was over. Now they're coming back. The shield batteries online, overcharging, shielding all these probes. They could actually trade fairly well. If the shield battery was recharging the pylon, he might have been able to hold on there, but the pylon goes down and GG is called. Wow. An amazing last game. Such a switch up. Cserbs really pulling out the wild card in the last game of the series. When things get rough, tied up 1-1, he goes all out with like an early rush or some kind of timing. I'm so glad it wasn't a 4-gate. He really spiced it up with the 3-gate cyber stalker pressure. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Bool Cup. Cserbs took 1st place. Firebrand is going to take 2nd place. FancyFetus takes 3rd. And Hamburger is going to take 4th. So that was awesome. That was a great series. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for playing. That's all I have for you. The Bool Cup, the 2nd Bool Cup will probably be taking place in September sometime. And another one of these videos will come out. So yeah, if you want to contribute to the Bool Cup prize pool, check the link in the description. It'll be a paypal.me link to paypal.me/SawyerNichols. And you can support the Bool Cup prize pool directly from that, incentivizing me and the players to continue doing this. And other than that, I got nothing else to say except for GG. And I'll see you guys in the next one.